Chapter 641. Shanghao Corporation, Xingfeng Building, CEO's Office. Yu Lingwei was standing next to the desk. Today, Lan Bing was still dressed as a white-collar beauty and looked very charming. However, Lan Bing's expression was not very good because a remote real-time projection was being generated in the middle of the room. Only the higher-ups of Shanghao Corporation could directly connect to the CEO's office. Usually, a meeting would only be held when something big happened. The projection quickly appeared. Even the person who came in was the elegant Yuan Jie. Yuan Jie did not seem to have any expression. He just said calmly, "Sister Wei, please go out for a while. I have something to discuss with CEO Lan alone." Yu Lingwei immediately turned and walked out of the office. She knew that Yuan Jie was the kind of person who was very clear about public and private matters. There was no way he would come to talk about love with Lan Bing so early in the morning. There must be something confidential. Lan Bing then got up with a serious expression. "Yuan Jie, you're here so early. Is it because of Ding Meng?" Yuan Jie nodded. "Lil Bing, your old friend is very capable. Even my big sister is full of praise for him." Lan Bing's heart sank. She was familiar with Yuan Jie's style of doing things. Yuan Jie suddenly mentioned his big sister, which meant that CEO Yu Tianlin was very likely alarmed. Ding Meng went to outer space this time and caused a series of trouble. First, he turned Planet Phoenix's space station upside down and killed a Battle Monarch-level disciple of the Bai family. Then, he discovered the secret base of Xingfeng Corporation in Pandora. These things were not a big deal to Shanghao Corporation. In fact, they were quite beneficial. Lan Bing frowned slightly. "Yuan Jie, does the CEO have something to say about Blue Moon's branch?" Yuan Jie nodded approvingly at first. Then he said in a low voice, "Lil Bing, I just received news that the Starry Rainbow Group has teamed up with the Tianhang, Hongyue, and Zhengxing families to announce a partnership on the happy Planet Orange. Only Shanghao is excluded." Planet Orange had recently discovered a large number of mineral resources. Originally, it was a situation where the 5 families jointly invested in it. Now that Xingfeng Corporation had done this, it was undoubtedly to kick Shanghao Corporation out. Although Shanghao and Xingfeng Corporation had always had conflicts, a direct confrontation like this was very rare. Lan Bing also knew about the Orange Star Mine. If the Shanghao group couldn't participate in it, the headquarters would suffer a great loss. It seemed that the Star Rainbow Group's sudden action must have something to do with Ding Meng. "And Jie, did you find out anything about Ding Meng?" Lan Bing probed. Yuan Jie sighed. "My father was curious as well. Before Ling Zhixing made any big moves, he would always inform us beforehand. However, this time, he chose to break the agreement without saying a word. We were guessing that something on our side might have triggered the Starbao Corporation. Last night, I asked a friend to investigate and found out that not only did Ding Meng discover the Starbao Corporation's secret teleportation base on Planet V9, he even started a fight. He directly killed 2 of the Starbao Corporation's high-level battle monarchs and crippled 3 of their beginner-level battle saints. Apparently, these people were Ling Xingqi's forces. It would be strange if Lan Bing wasn't shocked by this insider information. Ding Meng was indeed ruthless. He even dared to provoke Ling Xingqi and even destroyed such a powerful force. It would be strange if the Ling family didn't get angry. They would definitely take action. Of course, the Starbao Corporation's actions could be interpreted as revenge or as looting a burning house. Since they dared to touch Miss Ling's direct subordinates, they naturally had their own ways to deal with the Shanghao group. However, Lan Bing's expression didn't change. "And Jie, how much will our Shanghao group lose because of the Orange Star Mine?" Yuan Jie looked at her meaningfully. "According to the market department's preliminary estimates, the loss will be more than 600 billion. Lan Bing showed an apologetic expression. "And Jie, I'm really sorry. I didn't restrain my subordinates well." Hearing her answer, Yuan Jie showed a gratified smile. "Xiao Bing, you don't have to blame yourself. Our group can still afford such a small loss. Ding Meng is to my liking. My sister also has high hopes for him." Lan Bing smiled bitterly and said, "Since such a big thing has happened, I should remind him." Yuan Jie smiled. "You don't have to restrain him too much. Those old men in Shanghao lack his ruthlessness. The stronger they are, the more cowardly they become. I really don't know what's the point of cultivating so desperately. They're not even as good as Ding Ming. Lan Bing smiled bitterly. Miss, you're also paying attention to Ding Ming? Yuan Jie also seemed to be smiling bitterly. Xiao Bing, to tell you the truth, I originally wanted to transfer Ding Ming to the headquarters. However, considering that you haven't arrived at the headquarters yet, and he's at the Blue Moon branch, I don't have to worry too much about you. After all, Sister Wei is just a warlord. If she encounters unreasonable people, you'll only suffer losses. This. Lan Bing really didn't know how to answer. No matter how she looked at it, she was definitely not willing to let Ding Ming go to the headquarters. After Ding Ming returned to the Federation, it could be seen from these few incidents that Ding Ming's strength could only be described as unfathomable. In other words, he was a powerful backer. Everyone wanted to ride on his coattails. How could they push him away? Yuan Jie continued, but my sister and I discussed it yesterday. She said that she hopes that you will report to the headquarters when the time is right. Only Lan Bing understood what he meant. Because of his relationship with Lan Bing, he had never received the support of his parents. As the young master of the Shanghao group, Yuan Jie had countless suitors. The most important problem was that he was still unmarried. According to the Federation's convention, Yuan Jie's first wife had to be the daughter of a big family from a big financial group. They had to be well-matched in terms of social status. However, Lan Bing came from a poor family and had once committed herself to the Haitian group. This definitely did not meet the requirements of Yuan Jie's parents. Of course, Yuan Jie's parents weren't stubborn people. Regardless of whether Lan Bing was his girlfriend or his first wife, Yuan Jie could do whatever he wanted with her. Lan Bing couldn't be the first wife of the Yu family. This wasn't negotiable. Therefore, almost none of the senior management of Shanghao Group supported the relationship between Yuan Jie and Lan Bing. The only person who supported it was Yuan Jie's eldest sister. The reason was very simple. If a woman wanted to support another woman, there was no need for a reason. If she was happy, she liked it, and she was willing to do so. If you have the guts, come and provoke the eldest sister of the Yu family. Do you have the guts? Now that Yuan Jie mentioned the words, the time is right, Lan Bing instantly understood. This so-called time is right was probably going to make a fuss about Ding Ming. Sure enough, Yuan Jie continued. This time, Planet V9 and Planet Orange may seem unrelated, but in fact, both of them are related. You don't have to worry about the headquarters. The fact that the Blue Moon branch can withstand the external pressure this time is enough to prove that you and Ding Ming are qualified to come to Saint Splendor. My sister also wants to meet Ding Ming. She didn't invest in this year's Star Wars League under Xinghao's name. Instead, she registered a club herself and is currently recruiting members. I can tell you the truth. She used all her private savings and even borrowed $200 billion from me. Based on the lineup she has now, I estimate that she will lose everything in less than half a year. Lan Bing couldn't help but laugh. Ding Ming isn't on the list now. Does he count as someone with potential? Yuan Jie also laughed. Tell him and see if he is interested. We definitely won't treat him badly in this aspect. Lan Bing nodded. Okay, I will definitely pass on your behalf. After the call ended, Lan Bing continued to work. Not long after, a new message popped up in her low-light glasses. It was a call from Yu Lingwei. What's the matter? Lan Bing asked in a deep voice. Yu Lingwei said, President Lan, Secretary Ding has returned to Blue Pole Star City. Tell him to report to me. I have something to discuss with him, Lan Bing said indifferently. She didn't need to remind Ding Ming that the commotion he caused was getting bigger and bigger. This time, no matter what, he had to stop for a while. She was still in deep thought when she realized that the call on her glasses hadn't ended. She couldn't help but ask, Sister Wei, is there anything else? This time, Yu Lingwei's answer wasn't very clear. President Lan, President Shun of the Jinling Group, wants to see you. He has been waiting in the reception area for the entire morning. Lan Bing frowned. Why is he here again? Yu Lingwei understood her thoughts and took the initiative to explain. President Lan, at this critical juncture, the Blue Moon branch of Star Rainbow Group is fully targeting us. Jinling Group is one of the few partners of Shanghao. It doesn't seem good to refuse. Moreover, he came to see you by appointment this time. Lan Bing said, well, let him come up. Jinling Group was also a reputable company in Blue Pole Star City, but its scale was far inferior to Shenghao's. However, Jinling Group and Rainbow Gold Group were both partners of Shenghao's Blue Moon branch. They played a very important role in the supply of metal minerals. To put it bluntly, they were strategic partners. However, since Lan Bing became the president of Blue Moon, Shun Shi, the vice president of Jinling Group, was amazed by the beauty of this young president. He would come to the Star Peak building every few days and invited her many times. Unfortunately, President Lan didn't agree even once. Of course, the main reason was that this young master of the Shun family didn't know that President Lan was President Yu's girlfriend. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to pursue Lan Bing even if he had 10,000 guts. The most terrible thing was that very few people knew about this news. Even if they knew, no one would tell him. At this moment, a young man in a suit and leather shoes entered the president's office and stood respectfully beside the sofa. Hello, President Lan. President Shun, please sit down. Lan Bing was also very generous. Although she knew that this was her pursuer, she didn't neglect him because Shun Shi wasn't as annoying as a headless fly. At least, he was well-behaved. Shun Shi showed a gentle smile. President Lan, according to the contract, all the goods for this month have been stored. I came here to report to you. Lan Bing also smiled and said, this kind of thing, we really have to trouble President Shun to come here in person. What she meant was that for a small matter like fulfilling the contract on time, he could have just informed her through instant messaging. There was no need for him to come in person. Shun Shi stood up and said respectfully, President Lan, Jinling and your group have cooperated for many years. After you took office, we cooperated even more happily. So today, I want to take this opportunity to invite President Lan to lunch. What do you think? This was where he was more mischievous because Lan Bing had explicitly rejected his pursuit, but he turned a deaf ear to it. Anyway, he was either giving her flowers or inviting her lunch. He had a persevering spirit. This made Lan Bing a little annoyed. After all, he was Shenghao's partner. She couldn't drive him away with a cold face. Lan Bing smiled and said, I'm sorry, President Shun. I already have an appointment today. Another day. Shun Shi continued to show the spirit of sticking to Lan Bing. President Lan, I have already booked a place in the Galaxy Dynasty. I hope you can give me some face. My father is very grateful to Shenghao Group. Then your father can invite the senior management of Shenghao Group. What do you mean by asking me out? Lan Bing really wanted to reply with this sentence. However, at this moment, the office door opened automatically. Another man in a suit walked in slowly. Looking at his casual appearance, it felt as if he had entered his own backyard. However, as soon as this person came in, Lan Bing immediately stood up. The smile on her face became wider. You're finally back. Seeing this situation, Shun Shi suddenly became very nervous. Chapter 642. Shun Shi's nervousness was not without reason. Lan Bing rarely discussed matters in her own office. Those who could enter the CEO's office were either rich or respectable. If President Lan personally stood up to greet them, their relationship would obviously be even more special. Shun Shi also stood up and secretly sized up the intruder. Then, a hint of vigilance flashed in his eyes. This was because Ding Ming was not ugly except for his slightly short stature. On the contrary, there was a hint of handsomeness between his eyebrows. Ding Ming's appearance was the type that was easy to look at. At first glance, he did not look like much, but after a closer look, one would find that this person had a very good temperament. Of course, this temperament was not the same as before. Instead, it had a kind of restrained sharpness that made people not dare to underestimate him. Ding Ming's first words made Shun Shi even more nervous. Oh, the environment here is so good. There are flowers and grass. The scenery is pleasant, and the air is much better, Shun Shi asked cautiously. President Lan, may I ask who this gentleman is? Lan Bing had an idea. President Shun, this is my secretary, Ding Ming. He has just been appointed. He is in charge of energy minerals. Oh, it's Secretary Ding. Shun-Shi breathed a sigh of relief and took the initiative to shake his hand. Nice to meet you. Ding Meng was confused, but seeing how enthusiastic he was, he could only shake hands. Lan Bing smiled and said, Ding Meng, Mr. Shun-Shi is the deputy general manager of the Jinling Group. He is responsible for supplying all kinds of rare metals, such as superconducting ores for the Blue Moon branch. President Shun specially invited us to lunch at the Galaxy Dynasty to thank our group. You happen to be in charge of this area, but I have something to do at noon, so you can go on my behalf. Oh, when he heard that it was a big meal, Ding Meng's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of coldness. Damn it, how long has it been since I last ate? The last time was at the Galaxy Dynasty. Before he could eat a few bowls of duck meat, he was interrupted by that guy, surnamed Zhong. Today, as soon as he came back, there was such a good opportunity. Ding Meng agreed without hesitation. Okay, President Lan, I will go right away. Lan Bing's lips curled into a smile. She knew all too well what these men were thinking, including Ding Meng. Ding Meng was a glutton, and Shun-Shi was a pervert. These two people would definitely hit it off. This was because Shun-Shi's current thoughts were completely within Lan Bing's expectations. He had bitterly pursued Lan Bing to no avail, and it wasn't good for him to invite Yuling Wei. After all, Big Secretary, you was also a woman. If this news were to spread, it wouldn't be good for him. Now that a male secretary had suddenly appeared, there was finally a breakthrough. Secretary Ding, please. Shun-Shi extended his hand enthusiastically. Ding Meng's attitude became even more humble when he saw that someone was treating him to a big meal. Mr. Shun, you first. Last time at the Galaxy Dynasty Hotel, it was the transit string who took the initiative to invite them. With Shun-Shi's identity, he definitely couldn't book a table on the top floor. Therefore, the two of them came to the 28th floor. This floor was also a specialty restaurant. It was a kind of large two-person booth that was custom-made for couples. Therefore, when Ding Meng and Shun-Shi came in, they attracted a lot of strange gazes. Other people came to eat with their arms around each other's shoulders. This pair was different. They actually came together with two grown men. This relationship was a bit of a headache. Shun-Shi felt a bit uncomfortable being stared at. His face was red, and he didn't dare to look around. However, Ding Meng didn't care at all. As long as there was something to eat, let alone a couple's-themed restaurant, even if it was in the toilet, he could still taste the delicious taste. Hello, sir. Welcome to the Galaxy Dynasty. What would you like to order? The beautiful waiter was polite. Shun-Shi pointed to the crystal projector on the table. Secretary Ding, please. Ding Meng's mouth was watering as he looked at the gourmet images simulated by the crystal projector. There were truly all kinds of things. He could only see his finger rapidly tapping on the hologram. Saba barbecue? Give me 10 plates. What is this? Spiniac steak? Okay, give me 5 plates. Sacred tiger, sun, palm? Damn. Oh, it turns out to be a grilled bear paw. I thought it was a martial arts technique. Then give me 10. Soaring bull? What the hell was this? Then give me 6 plates. Hee. There are also braised chicken wings here. Give me 50 pairs. He ordered 70 to 80 dishes in one breath. Shun-Shi, who was sitting opposite him, was already stunned. Ding. Secretary Ding. Did we order too much? It's a waste if we can't finish it. Ding Meng slapped his forehead. Oh, sorry, President Shun. I only ordered for myself and forgot about you. Come, you treat. Shun-Shi looked at him as if he was looking at a monster. Ding. Secretary Ding. Are you an origin ability user? Oh, I'm just a so-so. Ding Meng tried to be as humble as possible. In fact, he didn't know that there were many rules when dining in these high-class restaurants. Everyone knew that origin ability users who were above the warrior level didn't need to eat. For example, the warlords and warlords who came here were just there to go through the motions and taste the food. Those who really needed to eat, and those who had a huge appetite, were the pure beginner and intermediate origin ability users. Ding Meng's answer gave Shun-Shi the illusion that Ding Meng was a beginner origin ability user. Then, this beginner origin ability user opened President Shun's eyes. All kinds of meat that Ding Meng ordered were served like flowing water. He He didn't even need to use a knife and fork. He just casually picked up a large plate and shook it. The steak and barbecued meat on the plate disappeared. Looking at Ding Ming, he didn't seem to have even moved his mouth. As for how he ate, President Shun felt that his eyes were blurred and he couldn't see clearly. 70 to 80 dishes were finished in less than 5 minutes. Even the waitress stood there with her mouth wide open. She was completely stunned. Huh? What's with your expressions? Ding Ming was a little puzzled. President Shun, why are you in a daze? Eat something. Shun Shi's voice trembled a little. Ding. Secretary Ding, do you want to order more? I guess you're not full yet. Full. Ding Ming now felt like he had only eaten a few sesame seeds. He was still thousands of miles away from being full. However, these sesame seeds were indeed delicious. How can I accept this? How can I accept this? I'm sorry to have made President Shun spend so much money. Ding Ming said that he was sorry, but his fingers began to randomly poke at the menu again. This time, he ordered more than 200 servings of the same dishes. The waitress' speed of collecting the plates was not as fast as his eating speed. In less than 10 minutes, the table was empty again. From beginning to end, Shun Shi had only ordered a steak, a plate of salad, and a plate of fruit in front of him. Moreover, he hadn't touched any of them. Shun Shi looked at Ding Ming. After a long time, he finally opened his mouth and said, Ding, Secretary Ding. Ding Ming was also a little embarrassed by his stare. The cheapest Shibab barbecue here was more than 1,000 star coins per plate. After this meal, Tai Tai had already eaten up at least 1 million star coins. If she continued to order, Boss Shun might start to doubt his life after being eaten so much. Ahem. I'm sorry, President Shun. I made you spend so much money. Ding Ming hurriedly laughed. Shun, she was also puzzled. How did a good job of picking up girls turn into this? Of course, he didn't lack money. What he cared about was Lan Bing. What did President Lan like to do? What were her hobbies? Where did she like to go after work? Unfortunately, Secretary Ding could only answer with but his mouth was full. He ordered another 50 plates of spicy pepper chicken. This time, not only did he chew the chicken bones clean, but he also ate the peppers. I admire you. Shun Shi's eyes widened. You're too kind. Ding Ming pretended to be modest again. He was scared by himself. His stomach was still not half full. If he continued to eat like this, President Shun would probably jump off a building later. However, if he didn't eat, he could only chat idly. Of course, Lan Bing appointed him as her representative, so he had to deal with the situation. As for the business, he just had to symbolically ask about it. Jinling Group was different from Rainbow Gold Group. Irene's Rainbow Gold Group had a fixed inventory, which provided all kinds of materials needed by Shenghao Group. Shenghao Group's Blue Moon branch mainly focused on Warframe components, so the demand for materials was very high. Jinling Group, on the other hand, took the channel route. To put it simply, Jinling Group bought all kinds of strange things from large and slightly smaller companies, studios, teams, vendors, and black markets, and then sold them to Shenghao Group. They were the biggest middlemen. Well, there was no middleman to make a profit. Shun Shi didn't hide this from Ding Ming. Although Shenghao was not the only customer of Jinling Group, Shenghao was the biggest customer. Jinling Group could earn about 40 million yuan in profit from Blue Moon branch every quarter, which was very good among similar companies in Blue Pole Star City. However, Ding Ming was a little embarrassed. Shun Shi only earned about 10 million yuan a month, while he ate several million yuan for a meal. Hey, President Shun, you are really generous. If you have any difficulties, I will definitely help you. Shun Shi wanted to ask, Brother, can you help me ask President Lan out for a meal and then watch a movie? But after thinking about it, he felt that it was too obvious. President Lan's new secretary was a man, so he should make friends with him. Hee, Secretary Ding, you are really straightforward. Shun Shi gave him a thumbs up. Actually, we have a very good cooperation with Shenghao. Speaking of difficulties, it is not that big of a problem. It's just that we made less money this month. Ding Ming said, Didn't Shenghao pay you, President Shun? That's not it. Shun Shi smiled and waved his hand. President Lan has a very good reputation. He always pays us in full every time. It's just that this time, on the list of materials provided by Shenghao, there is something called C-class dark matter. The purchase price is the highest. We originally had a trading company that collected it, but there was an accident on the way. In the end, they couldn't transport it back to Blue Pole Star City in time. What the hell was C-class dark matter? Ding Meng remembered that even Xiao AI's database did not mention this. Of course, he had to pretend to be concerned. What happened? Shun, she said, this is a new trading company that takes the route of outer space. It seems that there is a problem with the channel. I don't know if you can ask about it. Secretary Ding? He thought that Ding Meng's identity represented Shenghao Group. If Shenghao Group asked about this matter, the trading company would definitely take it seriously. That's not a problem. Where is this company? I will go and have a look. Ding Meng's answer was quite straightforward. He thought that after eating a good meal, he would pretend to go to the so-called trading company and then go yo-yo. Since he was eating for free, he had to have the attitude of eating for free. He could not just turn around and leave after eating for free. He had to find a good reason to leave, right? Chapter 643. Ebao Interstellar Trading Company, Limited. This signboard was on the 20th floor of the Changfeng Commercial Building in the East District of Blue Pole Star City. To be honest, even Ding Meng struggled to see this line of words among the dazzling crystal billboards. There were too many small companies in this area, and the advertisements on each floor of the building made his eyes numb. The Changfeng Commercial Building was not an expensive building, but one floor was crammed with 20 to 30 small companies. How big could this Ebao company be? They even dared to call themselves Interstellar Trading Company. Their tone was a bit arrogant. There were no stairs in the building, only ancient elevators. Ding Meng wobbled up to the 20th floor and took a few turns before he found Ebao Company. This was an office converted from a private residence. It felt like a shell company. Hello, may I know who you were looking for? The young beauty at the front desk was quite polite. Ahem. Ding Meng thought about it and decided not to expose himself. He was afraid that the name of Shenghao Group would scare this little girl. Hello, my name is Ding Meng. I was recommended by President Shun, Shi of Jinling Group. I am looking for your deputy director, Wang Qi. The young beauty smiled and said, sorry, President Wang is not here. He is on a business trip and will be back in a month. Ding Meng was a bit disappointed. To prove that he had been here before, he had an idea. Then where's your boss? The young beauty said, sorry, President Liang is not here either. What can I do for you, Mr. Ting? I will register for you. President Liang will contact you when he comes back. Okay, thank you. Ding Meng followed her to the front desk and turned on the screen to enter his information. At this time, a surprised female voice came from behind. Ah, isn't this Ding Meng? What a rare guest. Ding Meng turned around to look and could not help but be surprised. Although this woman was wearing mechanical armor, her figure was slender and elegant. She was a standard beauty. Iran, what are you doing here? Ding Meng was curious. The beautiful receptionist stood up and said respectfully, Mr. Liang, this is Mr. Ting. He's here to see you. Liang Iran looked extremely happy. Haha, Ding Meng, I didn't expect you to have time to visit me. Welcome, a warm welcome. Xiao Yuan, quickly get Ding Meng a drink. Mr. Liang, Ding Meng's eyes widened. You're the boss of Ebao Company? What, don't I look like one? Liang Iran had already entered the hall and started to take off her armor. Let's go, Ding Meng. Let's have a chat in my office. I've always wanted to consult you. Liang Iran's office was really shabby. It was comparable to Galaga's regiment commander's office. There was only one table, one coffee table, and 2 long sofas. There wasn't even an air vent for the variable frequency crystal. The drinks that Xiao Yuan brought over were all Ebao brand black tea. It didn't seem to have a brand name. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. Iran, isn't your company a little too simple? Doesn't Duomo give you any pocket money? Do you want me to talk to him? Liang Iran smiled generously. Ding Meng, you really don't know how expensive it is to run a business. Don't let down on my place. The monthly rent for 1 square meter is as high as 1,200. Just the rent alone is enough to worry me to death. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped even more. He thought to himself, you're the eldest granddaughter of the Liang family, backed by a large financial group like the Red Moon International Trade Group. Your husband's family is the Du family of Blue Pole Star City, and your sister-in-law is the daughter of the Lang family. If you're someone who lacks money, then I'm not even qualified to be a beggar. Liang Iran seemed to know what he was thinking. She smiled and explained, Ding Ming, after graduating from Starlight, it wasn't easy for me to get this company. In the past few years, the business has improved a little. Listening to her, Ding Ming learned that after Liang Iran and Du Mo fell in love, she decided to stay in Blue Pole Star City. She was quite an independent woman. She didn't reach out to take money from her family, nor did she use the connections of the Red Moon Group. Instead, she took a loan to set up this company. It could be said that she started from scratch. Her purpose was to earn her own living, work hard, and prepare for a future marriage. Ding Ming couldn't help but admire Liang Iran. This girl could obviously rely on her looks and strength to make a living, but she chose to work hard in business. At the same time, he also envied her because Du Mo and Liang Iran lived the most ordinary life. Although it was ordinary, it was peaceful. Only Ding Ming understood how precious this ordinary life was. Of course, he couldn't envy these things. If he didn't know Liang Iran's background, it would be hard for others to believe that she was the daughter of the Liang family. Perhaps no one would know that the great beauty Liang lived in a place like this. Ding Ming, what business do you have with me? Liang Iran took the initiative to ask. Ding Ming couldn't help but explain the purpose of his visit. After listening, Liang Iran laughed. I was just about to ask you about this. Come, let me show you something. As she spoke, she turned on the optical computer on the table. A picture appeared on the screen. The picture was very simple, a bit like a water droplet under a microscope. The water droplet was constantly shrinking and changing, and it felt a bit like a gas. What is this? Ding Ming wondered. Liang Iran switched to another picture. This time, it was a brown but he couldn't tell what it was just by looking at the two pictures. This is a newly discovered Liang Iran explained. It has a mist-like composition. After we tested it, we found that it is a new type of energy. Oh, Ding Ming was a bit interested, and then Liang Iran said, currently, there is no sample in the Federation's database that can be compared, but the acquisition department of Shenghao Group named it as Sea-Level 2 dark matter. Ding Ming seemed to understand. So you sold it to Jinling Group, and then Jinling Group sold it to Shenghao Group? Liang Iran said, do you know what price Shenghao offered? Ding Ming curiously asked, how much? Liang Iran stretched out 3 fingers, 1 centimeter for 3 million. Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. That's not very high. Liang Iran was a bit unhappy, but I was able to sell it to Mr. Shun for 2 million. To me, that's already very high. I'm short of money. Hearing this, Ding Ming wanted to laugh. You call yourself poor? You think you're poorer than me? Iran, where did you get these ores? Ding Ming was really curious. Liang Iran pouted. Outer space. Outer space? Ding Ming stared at her suspiciously. Liang Iran was now an intermediate combat master. It was not that she was not qualified to go to outer space, but this so-called dark matter was definitely not from the star system near the Federal Empire. It was from a very distant place. How could a combat master get it? Others might not be able to assess the risk, but Ding Ming was absolutely clear. You have a fleet? No. Liang Iran was still very honest. Ding Ming said, then how did you get it? Liang Iran's expression was a bit unnatural. I found someone to buy it. Found someone to buy it? Ding Ming stared at her. Black market merchants? Or intergalactic traders? Liang Iran said, traders. Ding Ming's eyes widened. You're really brave, daring to deal with those people. Do you know Du Mo? Liang Iran argued. I'm starting a business, okay? Besides, I'm paying for it, and they're doing it for me. It's a fair trade. I earn my money through legitimate means. It was definitely not a legitimate method, but it was definitely not a crooked one. Ding Ming could understand her. This method of collecting goods from galactic peddlers was also hard-earned money. Why was that? This Yibao company was a small company. Compared to a group like Kaijin, it could not compete at all. If you didn't make some strange goods, how would Shenghao and Jinling be interested in you? Ding Ming immediately understood the meaning of the company's name. The E in Bao was taken from Liang Iran's name. Bao meant the treasure that Liang Iran found. As for intergalactic trading, it was just like the name. She did trade in outer space, so it was no wonder she was called Ebao Intergalactic Trading Company Limited. You really know how to play around the edges. Ding Ming muttered, "Tell me, what do you want to ask me? Do you want me to help you extract the energy in this, or?" Liang Iran smiled bitterly. "If I had the technology, I would have been rich a long time ago." In the entire Azure system, only Shenghao and Xinhong have the technology. I don't think they have it yet. I want you to help me see what kind of, or this is. It's definitely not some so-called C-class level 2 dark matter. Dark matter was a general term for the unknown matter in the universe, but there were many types of unknown matter. Ding Ming nodded. He turned on his wrist camera and took a few pictures. He then sent them out via email. He didn't dare to use the communication system, and the person he sent the message to was not Xinjie, but Ding Wenhe. As long as Little Rascal and the others knew, then Big Sis would definitely know what this thing was. In less than 5 minutes, Ding Wenhe replied. Ding Ming glanced at the email again, then turned his head and asked seriously, "Where did you get this thing?" Liang Iran said, I bought it from the peddlers. I originally paid the deposit, but they didn't get it this month. They said there was an accident, so they refunded the deposit to me double." Since the deposit was refunded, then Jinling's CEO, Shen, definitely couldn't deliver the goods. It seemed like CEO Shen didn't mean a simple less profit, but a huge loss. "Where are the peddlers now?" Ding Ming asked again. Liang Iran was a bit hesitant. For a small company like hers, the peddlers they contacted were actually a bit like the informants of the police. Generally, they couldn't let outsiders know. What if someone stole them? However, Ding Ming was not an outsider, so Liang Iran didn't hide it. "If you want to see them, I can contact them immediately. At most, we can meet up tonight." Ding Ming's eyes flashed. "I want to see what happened to them. If you can get this, or can you give me some?" "That's great." Liang Iran cheered. She knew that Ding Ming was strong. With Ding Ming's help, it would undoubtedly save a lot of trouble. It was a small share of the ore. Of course, she didn't know what these ores meant. Chapter 644. In a shabby tea house on the 200th floor of the underground city of Blue Pole Star City, Ding Ming and Liang Iran were sitting at a broken wooden table. The appointed time was 8 o'clock at night, but the other party had not arrived yet. The reason why they chose this underground city to meet was to avoid being noticed. After all, it was best not to be seen when dealing with the peddlers. At 8 o'clock sharp, a big man in a black hood entered the tea house. Liang Iran looked happy. "He's here." The big man in black was very respectful. "Boss Liang, I'm here." When he took off his hood, Ding Ming was suddenly stunned. The big man was obviously stunned too. "Brother Ding." Liang Iran was surprised. "You know each other?" Ding Ming suddenly smiled bitterly. The wanderhead that Liang Iran spoke of was Long Feiyu, the one who had sent Galagas and Lyman back to the refugee camp. Ding Ming suddenly remembered that Long Feiyu had told him that they had been dealing with trading companies in Blue Pole Star City recently, and Ebao Company was one of them. Some things seemed to be coincidences, but in fact they were not. Liang Iran could contact a peddler at Long Feiyu's level. There was no doubt that the Lang family was secretly helping her. The sister-in-law of the eldest daughter of the Lang family was starting a business alone. How could Fu Zhonghui be indifferent? After the introduction, Long Feiyu's expression became more respectful. "Brother Ding, it's really fate. It turns out that you and Boss Liang are classmates. If I had known, I would not have accepted the deposit from Boss Liang." It seemed that Long Feiyu still did not know the true identity of Liang Iran, and Fu Zhonghui did not dare to reveal it casually. Ding Ming smiled and said, "Brother Long, to tell you the truth, Iran is also my sister-in-law. This time, we are here to buy the C-class level 2 dark matter." Long Feiyu was a little surprised. "I see, but it's complicated." Liang Iran obviously did not know about the trading activities in outer space. She asked curiously, "Boss Long, didn't you say that there was an accident? What kind of accident is it?" Long Feiyu's expression was a little complicated. Boss Liang, we actually got this, or in the black market of Beidou. To be honest, second brother's friend got some by accident and then gave some to us. There are about 20 of them, and they're only the size of a fist, Ding Meng calculated. Even if they were the size of a fist, Liang Yuran would sell them to Shun Shi for hundreds of millions of dollars. Of course, excluding the reward to be given to Long Feiyu, Liang Yuran could make tens of millions of dollars. Of course, it was a deal. Long Feiyu looked awkward. But before we left the Big Dipper Star, this batch of goods was intercepted. Interception was slang, meaning that someone had stolen it. Liang Yuran did not understand, but Ding Meng did. Did the people from Big Dipper do it? Long Feiyu nodded solemnly. Brother Ding, have you heard of the Hubol's family? Not only had Ding Meng heard of it, but she had also heard of it before she went to Cyprus Ancient Star to settle accounts with Lu Ming and the others. The famous Hubol's family was the actual ruler of the Big Dipper Divine Star. Planet Beidou and Bogger Planet looked similar, but in fact, they were very different. The reason why Bogger Planet could become bigger and stronger was because it was far away from the Federation. In addition, the Zirital star field and the warped trash in outer space formed a natural barrier, so the Holy Grail Federation had never cared about it. On the other hand, Planet Beidou was located at the border between the Federation and the Empire. In terms of location, it was not much different from Planet KV-303. However, Planet Beidou was very close to the Fertile Chalk Galaxy. To the north was the Fertile Chalk Galaxy, to the east was the Devouring Realm, and to the west was the Steel Main Empire. As the war between the Norse Empire and the Frogmen intensified year by year, Planet Beidou's location became more and more important. It was the paradise of countless explorers, mercenaries, bounty hunters, and the major outer space forces. It was also the most important transit planet, especially for smugglers like Long Feiyu. As long as you wanted to go to the Fertile Chalk Galaxy, you could not go around Planet Beidou. Therefore, it was also an abnormal and prosperous planet. Many years ago, a man who called himself Hubolsi came here and built a private army. At the same time, he also displayed his powerful strength as a warlord. In the end, he completely controlled Planet Beidou and built Nanling City. He collected taxes on passing ships, and just the cost of parking and management alone could bring in tens of billions of profits a year. Hubolsi's origin was very mysterious, and very few people knew his true identity. After many years of development, the Hubolsi family in Nanling City had become the absolute overlord of Planet Beidou. The outside world said that this family must have the secret support of a major force in the Federal Empire. Otherwise, they would not have developed to such a large scale. This theory had not been verified yet, but the logic was there. How many people's interests were involved in such a planet? The greater the interests, the deeper the water. Even a major financial group, like Shenghao Xinhong, did not dare to easily start a conflict with the Hubolsi family. 9 years ago, the Guangyi Group, which was ranked 5th in the Norse Empire, sent a transport fleet to the Fertile Chalk Galaxy. They passed by Planet Beidou and replenished their energy there. For some reason, the people from the Guangyi Group and the Hubolsi family got into a conflict. Both sides fought in Nanling City, and the end result was that both sides suffered heavy losses. It was said that several warlords were also crippled. After that, the Guangyi Group was blacklisted on Planet Beidou, and their ships were banned from docking there. After 5 years, the Guangyi Group finally gave in and sent a vice president to apologize. Only then did the two sides reach a consensus. From this, it could be seen that Planet Beidou was a strategic location, and it also showed that the Hubolsi family was not as easy to deal with as everyone thought. When Long Feiyu's transport ship left the port, it was routinely inspected, and it was found to contain C-grade dark matter on the spot. According to the current rules set by Planet Beidou, this could not be taken away and had to be left behind. This was the accident that Long Feiyu had mentioned. Of course, Ding Meng also knew that the rules were just a cover. Someone must have snatched it openly. Long Feiyu and the others, who made a living in this field, did not want anything to happen to the spaceship full of their employer's goods in outer space. Since they cannot win, they had to admit defeat. Therefore, in the end, this batch of dark matter goods could not be shipped back, but most of the materials were shipped back to Blue Pole Star City in time. Brother Ding, President Liang, do you want this batch of goods back? Long Feiyu asked tentatively. They would definitely not be able to get it back. Ding Ming knew very well that the so-called Huber's family was actually no different from interstellar pirates. He could not expect them to reason with him. Finding out the origin of this batch of ore was the most important thing. However, if he wanted to go to planet Beidou, it would not be like going to Meteor City, Phoenix Starry Sky, or Planet V9. He could still rely on his strength to crush them head-on. In fact, Planet V9 had already given Ding Ming a reminder. Even such a remote and unfamiliar place had a battle sage guarding it. Planet Beidou was such a famous place, so he did not believe that the Huber's family did not have any battle sages. This matter had to be considered at length. At the very least, he had to make sufficient preparations before he set off. Ding Ming, let me go to Planet Beidou with you. Liang Yuran suddenly said. Absolutely not. Ding Ming and Long Feiyu said in unison. Liang Yuran was puzzled. Why not? I want to go and see it for myself. Ahem. Director Liang, you're the boss. Let's do these things. Long Feiyu's idea was very simple. If she could solve the problem herself, what else would they need? Of course, he did not think that Liang Yuran had the ability to solve this problem. Liang Yuran's strength was not bad, but as an intermediate battle master, how could she dare to challenge the Huber's family? Ding Ming also decisively advised, Yuran, it's better for you to stay in Blue Pole City. I will help you find this dark matter. After that, you can share some with me. Besides, if you leave Blue Pole City, how could Duomo not know? Although they advised, it didn't think so. Liang Yuran wasn't like Dai Yi, Lan Bing, and the others. If something happened to her when she went out, then the trouble would be huge. The Liang family, Du family, and Lang family, these three families' anger, who could withstand it? All right, Ding Ming, I will be relieved if you go. Liang Yuran was not stubborn. Long Feiyu also agreed with her. If Brother Ding takes action, I believe it will not be a big problem. He did not know what had happened on Planet V9, but he knew clearly what had happened on Planet Phoenix's space station. Bai Long Fei, a high-level battle monarch, could not resist Ding Ming at all. If Ding Ming, a battle sage, came to Planet Beidou, the Huber's family would have to give him some face, right? Actually, the two of them did not know that the so-called C-grade dark matter that Liang Yuran and Sheng Hao Corporation had mentioned was actually the residue of vital element crystals after Little Rascal and Ding Ming identified it during the day. Little Rascal immediately gave Ding Ming an order. You must find out the origin of these residue. This could very well be related to Xinguang biotechnology. The residue could be found on Planet Beidou, while Chu Jing of Xinhong Corporation directly transported the vital element crystals back. If the two were related, then it was even more important to pay attention to. After thinking about it, Ding Ming still felt that it was necessary to make some preparations first. At the very least, he had to find some helpers. Of course, he already had a candidate in mind. If he really had to go to Planet Beidou, Ming Yin would undoubtedly be the #1 candidate. She was now an intermediate battle master, so at the very least, she would have no problem protecting herself. Su Xiao was also the most suitable candidate. She had been on Planet Beidou for many years and had even become a battle master. She would definitely be familiar with the local situation and might even have a way to look for clues. At 11 o'clock at night, Ding Ming drove the flying car back to Huading Mountain Villa in the western suburbs. Villa number 2 appeared very quiet under the night sky. The starry sky was reflected in the lotus pond in the courtyard, and the entire villa appeared very serene and charming. As Ding Ming's information had been recorded in the AI system, the door to the living room on the first floor automatically opened when he returned. Ding Ming scanned the area and saw that there was a small room on the second floor that was a blind spot. It seemed that Lan Bing was at home. Ahem. Ding Ming pretended to cough twice. Lan Bing's languid voice soon came from upstairs. Come up. This situation doesn't seem right. Aren't people forbidden for going up to the second floor? What is Lan Bing up to? Ding Ming decisively decided to admit defeat. No, you can come down. Chapter 645. Lan Bing looked like she was ready to rest. She had already changed into her pajamas. Her pajamas were made of purple ice silk. As usual, it covered her body from head to toe. However, unlike usual, this was a slim-fit pajamas that outlined her graceful figure, especially her legs. Her long legs were comparable to Dai Yi's. Her straight and slender silhouette could be seen through the pajamas. Coupled with her light and graceful steps as she walked down the stairs, Ding Ming tried his best not to look at her. It was easy to overthink things if he looked at her for too long. Before Ding Ming could speak, Lan Bing spoke first. Not bad. I heard that you spent more than 2 million star coins on Mr. Shun for lunch today. Ahem. Ding Ming was a little embarrassed. This, Mr. Shun is very passionate, very passionate, very passionate. Lan Bing sat down opposite him and picked up the calming tea on the coffee table. With you at the branch, it seems like he won't dare to come here for a while. Ding Ming wondered if he had become this woman's shield again. People said that beautiful women were poison, but everyone wanted to eat them. People said that money was evil, but everyone wanted it. In the past, Ding Ming did not think much of this saying. Now, it seemed like it was true. Lan Bing was sitting opposite him. Although she was not close to him, the intoxicating fragrance made Ding Ming feel even more terrified. Do you know that you've been praised this time? Lan Bing said calmly. Ding Ming was curious. Oh, Lan Bing said. You Anjia and his elder sister are very optimistic about you. Ding Ming said, is it because of Planet V9? Lan Bing took a sip of her drink. The Xinhong group has already dismantled the base of Planet V9. Unfortunately, we don't know where they moved Chu Jing to yet. Ding Ming frowned. Mr. Yu and the others don't know either? Lan Bing nodded. Yes. Ding Ming sighed. Seems like I'm being nosy. Lan Bing suddenly stared at him. You're not a busybody. I know that you were the one who saved the descendants of those doctors, so this time, you can't just sit back and watch. Ding Ming's words didn't sound like much, but when he thought about it carefully, he immediately raised his guard. Lan Bing was just one step away from asking where Jin Tai and the others had gone. However, the secrets of Planet V4 must not be revealed. Ding Ming had no choice but to change the topic. Oh yeah, I want some equipment. Lan Bing was a little surprised. With your current strength, you still need equipment? What kind of equipment? Ding Ming said, it had better be something like armor. Do you have armor for battle saints? The answer was yes. However, even if there were such battle armors, there would not be many of them. At the very least, there were none on the market. Only a major corporation like Starry Rainbow could produce such battle armors. Lan Bing's train of thought changed quickly. Where are you going this time? Ding Ming didn't plan to hide it. I want to take a trip to Beidou. Lan Bing was silent. This was one of her strengths. She never took the initiative to ask for the reason. However, she could imagine that Ding Ming was going on a long journey this time. He was making preparations in advance. Lan Bing suddenly stood up and paced in front of the coffee table with a cup in her hand. She looked like she was thinking about something. After a long time, she said, until now, I have never seen Ling Xingqi's true face. This was why Ding Ming was a little afraid of her. She could basically guess what you were thinking as soon as you open your mouth to speak. Ding Ming asked curiously, you've never seen her before? Yes. Lan Bing nodded with a serious expression. More than 10 years ago, she attended the Starry Rainbow Corporation's centennial celebration. She didn't leave behind any images or records, and she hasn't shown herself since. I'm sure you're aware of the rumors that she's been running around for the Starry Rainbow Corporation. I've also confirmed this with Yuan Jia. She has indeed been active in outer space. Ding Ming had a rough idea. The remnants of the quintessential crystals on planet Beidou and the quintessential crystals on the secret base on planet V9 were definitely related. He had come back to verify this with Lan Bing. He believed that with Lan Bing's reach, she would definitely know something. He didn't completely believe her. He had always been wary of Lan Bing. However, he had a strong intuition that Lan Bing definitely knew something. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to guess his thoughts so accurately. The Starry Rainbow Corporation's influence on planet Beidou is huge. It's far greater than Sheng Hao's. Lan Bing said unhurriedly. The Starry Rainbow Corporation provided the technical support that allowed Nanling City on planet Beidou to build such a huge spaceport. Furthermore, the Hubel's clan did it through legal means. They paid the Starry Rainbow Corporation a high price for the design of the spaceport. No one can say anything about this. Ding Meng stared at her. You think I've been targeting the Starry Rainbow Corporation ever since I came back? Lan Bing also seemed to be expressionless. You asked me for the armor, and you wanted to go to planet Beidou. I can't help but associate you with Ling Xingqi. Ding Meng sighed. I'm not targeting her. Lan Bing also sighed. I understand. Perhaps our goals are the same. Ding Meng asked suspiciously, why do you say that? Lan Bing said, my power is limited. I can't reach outer space. This is an important reason why I kept you by my side as my secretary. Ding Meng stared at her. I believe that you're telling the truth. Lan Bing didn't say anything else. Suddenly, she did something very shocking. She slowly put down the small crystal cup and walked elegantly to sit down beside Ding Meng. Her sitting posture was quite interesting. Lan Bing crossed her legs, but her body was almost leaning against Ding Meng. Even though it wasn't a true zero distance, Ding Meng could feel the astonishingly warm and soft body of hers through the air. That fragrance, that charm, that gentleness unique to women, it wasn't seduction at all. It was a huge threat. Ding Meng didn't move. He only took a deep breath. Lan Bing glanced at him. What are you afraid of? Ding Meng quibbled. I'm not afraid. Lan Bing said. If you're not afraid, then why are you so nervous? Ding Meng said. I'm not nervous either. Is that so? Lan Bing smiled coldly. Her soft body gently pressed against his body. Ding Meng couldn't help but shiver. His entire body trembled. Lan Bing smiled. People who are being taken advantage of are always calm and collected. However, the person who's taken advantage of is always overreacting. Relax. It would be strange if Ding Meng could relax, because Lan Bing made an even bolder move. She reached out her slender hand and gently grasped Ding Meng's left hand. Their fingers intertwined. This was even more paralyzing than an electromagnetic-type attack. Ding Meng felt his entire body go limp. It wasn't that he hadn't touched Lan Bing's hand before. It could even be said that he had touched even more private parts of her body. However, that time was different from this time. That time was too absurd. It was so absurd that it felt like a dream. Everything was too surreal. However, this time it was real. It wasn't a dream. Suddenly, Ding Meng returned to normal. He allowed a long sigh. Did I fall into your trap again? He finally realized how cunning Lan Bing was. While he was distracted, Lan Bing's hands had already rolled up his suit sleeves. Her slender hand pressed on his wrist device. Actually, this wasn't considered an outrageous move. The problem was that above the device, the divine light bracer on his wrist was exposed. Lan Bing's gaze fell on the bracer. Her expression became thoughtful. Don't worry, I'm not a threat to you. In your eyes, I might not be a threat either. Ding Meng's expression darkened. At least you know your place. A faint smile appeared on Lan Bing's face. Do you know? I'm the only one who has such a fleeting opportunity. If it were someone else, they might not even have a chance. Ding Meng said, Oh? Tell me, how did you find out? Lan Bing said seriously. I found out when you first came to the Snow Peak building. At that time, you were in my office. Both of us have applied telekinesis, so there was a blind spot in our vision, so we could only observe with the senses of ordinary people. However, your attention was all focused on me, so you ignore my gaze. Ding Meng frowned and said, What kind of explanation is that? I don't understand. Lan Bing said, You're a man, so of course you don't understand. However, as a woman, you're very sensitive in this aspect. When you were sitting on the sofa in the office that day, although you didn't move and your eyes didn't stop on me, I knew that you were secretly observing me. You were observing my figure, face, clothes, hair accessories, hairstyle, jewelry, and all the other details. For a moment, you even observed the size of my breasts. You don't have to deny it, and don't ask why. Because I could feel it. Ding Ming couldn't help but sigh. You are indeed an authority in this aspect. Lan Bing smiled again. So when you were observing me, you didn't notice that I had already discovered this strange thing in your hand. Ding Ming was speechless. Although his strength now far exceeded Lan Bing's, every time the two of them fought or interacted, Lan Bing always had the initiative and the upper hand. Lan Bing continued, You're a battle saint. It's difficult for others to even get close to you, let alone have ideas about you. Therefore, I think that in order to get close to you, this person must meet a few conditions. First, it must be someone close to you. Second, it must be a woman. Third, this woman must not be very resistant to you. Fourth, this woman must be able to distract you. Ding Ming sighed again. Listening to what you said, there aren't many women who meet these conditions. Lan Bing said, Although Sister Yin is the woman you trust the most, it's impossible for her to have intimate contact with you. Ding Ming nodded. He had to admit that Meng Yin only had admiration for him and absolutely no love for him. Lan Bing said, The only people who meet these two conditions are me and the Dai family's 5th Mississippi. However, Dai definitely doesn't know what this thing in your hand is. Ding Ming turned his head and stared at her in shock. Don't tell me you know. Lan Bing let go of his hand and walked toward the stairs. Come, let me show you something. Chapter 646. The second floor's decor was the same as the first floor's. It had a strong retro style. There were many small rooms on the second floor. Even though Ding Ming had scanned the room with his telekinetic vision before, he was still seeing Lan Bing's bedroom for the first time. It was a completely enclosed room. There were no windows, no balcony, and almost nothing. Apart from a large, ancient-looking bed, the only light source in the room was pink. However, it was also because of this light that people could feel an ambiguous atmosphere when it walked in. Of course, Ding Ming wasn't stupid enough to think that Lan Bing was trying to seduce him. Lan Bing pulled out a small and exquisite satchel from under the large pillow on the bed. It looked like a woman's accessory for attending a prestigious event, but it was actually a specially made anti-gravity handbag. The fact that Lan Bing had placed it under her pillow was enough to show how important it was. She must have carried it with her at all times. As expected, Lan Bing pressed her palm against the surface of the satchel. Not long after, the satchel flashed with a green light. It was obvious that the scan was complete. The satchel opened with a hum like an alloy door. Lan Bing's eyes narrowed. She activated her telekinesis, and a grayish-brown object floated out of the satchel and froze in the air. Even though Ding Ming was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. This grayish-brown object was exactly the same as the divine light bracer on his arm. The only difference was that this bracer seemed to be in tatters. Ding Ming couldn't sense any energy fluctuations from it. If Ding Ming's divine light weapon was alive, then Lan Bing's bracer was dead. Where did you get this? Ding Ming asked in a low voice. Lan Bing said seriously, I want to ask you the same thing. The bracer on your arm, what kind of object is it? Ding Ming immediately shut his mouth, and Lan Bing fell silent as well. Although the two of them were facing each other, there was a faint scent of danger in the air. Earlier in the hall downstairs, Lan Bing had used an ambiguous method to steal his cock and had successfully pulled open Ding Ming's sleeve. This method was actually very subtle, because Lan Bing had already explained that only a woman who was not very resistant to Ding Ming could do it. No one else would be able to touch his sleeve. They would not even have a chance to get close to him. However, Lan Bing was able to succeed, not because Ding Ming did not resist her, but because she understood a man's mind too well. What happened that night on Planet Thorn had a great impact on the two of them. Some things, the more you try to forget, the easier it was to remember. Besides, no man could ignore Lan Bing's charm, and Ding Ming was no exception. When the two of them met again after so many years, there might still be some distance between them. However, tonight, the window had been broken, and the two of them had revealed their true colors. Earlier on the first floor, the two of them were still very ambiguous, but now, all the ambiguity had turned into a cold and dangerous aura. Lan Bing was a rose with poisonous thorns. Ding Ming looked at her quietly. Ding Ming was a sharp knife with hidden sharpness. Lan Bing did not avoid his gaze. This situation was very much like two experts confronting each other in the dark. After a long time, Lan Bing sighed first. This was left behind by Chu Mingyang. All these years, he has been looking for this bracer, but the one he kept seemed to have lost its vitality. It was not until I saw the bracer on your wrist that I realized he was looking for yours. If I remember correctly, you did not have this bracer before the expedition flew into the wormhole. She spoke first, and it seemed like she wanted a compromise first. Ding Ming said meaningfully, "This is a weapon. That's all I can tell you." "What kind of weapon is it?" Lan Bing wanted to get to the bottom of this. Ding Ming said in a low voice, "Once you know, whether you can survive or not is uncertain." Lan Bing was silent for a long time before she said, "It's Shenhuang Technologies, right?" Ding Ming did not answer. Lan Bing nodded. "I understand. The map of the Holy Sanctum that Chu Mingliang mentioned was real. If we find this bracer, we might be able to find the map of the Holy Sanctum. With the map, we can gain unprecedented power." Ding Ming still did not answer, but his eyes were even colder. The air was filled with a sharp, murderous aura. Lan Bing immediately sensed the change in Ding Ming's mood. "You want to silence me?" Ding Ming was expressionless. "That's not difficult." Lan Bing was not nervous. She said calmly, "It's useless to kill me because I'm not the only one who knows." Ding Ming was not stupid. The higher-ups of Shenghao and Star Rainbow know too, don't they? Lan Bing shook her head. "I'm not sure either, but my instincts tell me that they should know." Ding Ming waved his hand without warning. Lan Bing immediately flew towards him, and he grabbed her by the throat. Unlike the others who had been grabbed by Ding Ming, Lan Bing did not struggle or cry for help. She just calmly faced her impending death. She knew very well that this secret was also Ding Ming's secret. If she discovered Ding Ming's secret, Ding Ming would definitely kill her. Unexpectedly, Ding Ming released his grip and threw her onto the bed. "After Chu Mingliang died, you came to Shenghao Group for this secret?" "Yes." Lan Bing adjusted her neckline. Ding Ming had thrown her a little too hard, causing her to see stars. Her neckline couldn't help but fall open, revealing a large patch of white jade. Ding Ming said in a low voice, "Why are you still so fixated on this?" Lan Bing said, "Chu Mingliang wanted to find the K-virus, not for the K-virus itself. He wanted to use the K-virus to analyze Professor Harsing's research because he knew that the Kuan Peng starship had been buried on the dead silent star." Ding Ming looked at her in surprise. "You know a lot. Go on." Lan Bing said, "The Kuan Peng starship was provided to the professor by Haitian Group. The professor's research results are in Shenghao, so there's no way Haitian Group can get their hands on them. Worst of all, the wrist guard Chu Mingliang got is a high-quality imitation. The real one was stolen by someone else on the starship." Ding Ming said sternly, "What about the name list? You've been in Haitian Group for so many years. You must know the name list." Lan Bing sighed. "After you left the Federation, Haitian Group collapsed, and the name list was taken by someone else." Ding Ming said, "Who took it?" Lan Bing shook her head. "I don't know, but all the clues point to Shenghao Group." Ding Ming took 2 steps forward, a strange look on his face. "I don't understand. Why are you so fixated on this matter?" Lan Bing raised her head proudly. "I'm the same as you." Ding Ming was surprised. "Oh," Lan Bing said, "when you were in Black Gold Base, what was your biggest wish? Was it to survive? To live as long as possible?" Ding Ming had to admit that during those difficult days, his only wish was to survive. Lan Bing said, "What's the real reason for your survival?" "It's because you've come into contact with one secret after another." Ding Ming sneered. "Could it be that you're pursuing these secrets because you want to survive as well?" Lan Bing turned her head, as if she didn't want Ding Ming to see her expression. "You don't understand. My situation is the same as yours, especially for women. A beautiful woman's beauty doesn't mean wealth or opportunity, but greater danger and disaster. If I wasn't the CEO of Shenghao Group and you Anja's lover in name, I would only become someone's plaything, trampled upon and humiliated." She thought that Ding Ming wouldn't understand, but Ding Ming's tone softened. "I can understand. Misty's engagement is a very dignified disaster. Lan Bing looked at Ding Ming with some surprise. After a moment, she sighed. You've been to so many places just to survive. I've been through so much, and I also want to survive. It's just that the environment and methods are different. I have so much information and secrets in my hands. So many people don't dare to attack me. Ding Ming looked at her. But Yuan Jie is the CEO of Shenghao Group. I believe there are very few people who would dare to attack you. Lan Bing suddenly turned her head and stared at him with a strange expression. Do you really think I like someone like him? Ding Ming said, What kind of person is he? Lan Bing said firmly, He's no different from Chu Yifeng. Ding Ming fell silent again. He remembered that night. Chu Yifeng had fallen into Lan Bing's hands. He was afraid that Yuan Jie would die at Lan Bing's hands sooner or later. After a moment of silence, Ding Ming sighed and said, For Sister Yan's sake, I won't hold you accountable for what happened tonight. But I don't want anyone to know about Xinguang Technologies. Lan Bing said proudly, Can I understand that you're threatening me? Ding Ming looked at her again. I don't think I can threaten you at all. Seeing that he had changed his mind, Lan Bing sighed faintly. Do you still remember what happened on the underground exploration ship on planet Thorn 7 years ago? Ding Ming sighed. I'm sorry, Lan Bing said. After I had sex with you that time, I decided to forget about it and never touch another man for the rest of my life. But as luck would have it, you actually came back 7 years later. The two of them had a strange tacit understanding. Ding Ming understood the reproach in her words. Nothing had happened between him and Dai. When he came back, he went to Meteor City and went on a killing spree. But he had intimate contact with Lan Bing. But in reality, he had never done anything for her. In the end, Lan Bing did not receive the same treatment as Dai Yi did from Ding Ming. Women's mentality was just that strange. If there was no comparison, there would be no hurt. If he had not gone to Meteor City, Lan Bing might not have thought in this direction. But after causing a ruckus there, a woman's jealousy came out. Ding Ming said helplessly, What can I do for you? Lan Bing pointed at his nose coldly. I want you to take responsibility. Ding Ming said, How do you want me to take responsibility? Lan Bing laughed coldly. Do you think I'm a fence-sitter just because you've become stronger? Don't even think about it. Ding Ming spread his hands and said, Fine. Then what do you want me to do? Lan Bing pointed at him. You come here. Ding Ming could only stand by the bed obediently. Suddenly, Lan Bing jumped up and bit him on the shoulder. The bite was quite powerful. Ding Ming did not dare to circulate his origin energy for fear of hurting her. 10 seconds later, his suit and shirt were torn apart. 2 rows of teeth marks were clearly visible. Ding Ming was about to speak when Lan Bing pointed at his nose angrily again. Go and sleep in the pavilion. You're not allowed to stay here. Chapter 647. The next morning, the beautiful President Lan and the calm Secretary Ding appeared together on the 520th floor of the Snow Peak building. This was the Technology Research Center of the Blue Moon branch. The president rarely came here in person, so the person in charge did not dare to neglect them. He ran to the door to greet them, but President Lan and Secretary Ding did not look very happy. Ding Ming wanted to kill Lan Bing when she found out about the Divine Light Bracer last night, but he did not do it for various reasons. Aside from Lan Bing's identity, if he really killed her, it would be difficult to explain to Meng Yan. Of course, there was also a subtle psychological problem. After all, Lan Bing was his first woman. If he really wanted to be ruthless, he wouldn't be able to do it. Besides, he did take advantage of her. It wasn't unreasonable for her to ask for a favor or two from him. If Ding Ming could have such thoughts, how could Lan Bing not have such thoughts? She took a risk to test Ding Ming this time because she knew that Ding Ming was a decisive person. Once her secret was exposed, she would be killed. However, Ding Ming did not kill her not because he was protective of her, but because she knew that she was useful to Ding Ming. At least, they had a common goal, the list of names. However, after the two of them showed their true colors last night, the two of them got along a little awkwardly. They both felt that the other party had ulterior motives. President Lan, Secretary Ding, please come in. The person in charge gestured carefully. The technology center of the Shenghao Group was similar to the president's office. It was decorated with colorful, glazing technology. The spacious hall was full of futuristic technology and had a strong sense of layering. Thousands of light screens flickered with light. The workers were wearing the same white uniform, and they were busy in an orderly manner. President Lan said faintly, "President Qian, you do what you need to do. I'm here to find Mr. Mason." Ding Meng had browsed through the personnel list of the Blue Moon branch. Mr. Mason worked in the technology center. He was a very talented warframe master in the Shenghao Group. He was very young, only 54 years old this year. It was said that he was a talent personally recruited by the Shenghao Group's headquarters. Lan Bing was looking for Mason because she wanted to see his armor. In the end, she was helping Ding Meng. Ding Meng couldn't help but raise his head to look at Lan Bing again. Lan Bing's side profile was also quite attractive, especially with her long bangs that fluttered down diagonally, accentuating the contours of her face. Coupled with her cold and indifferent expression, she was full of dignity and exuded a unique charm. After the person in charge left, Ding Meng asked, "Is there any armor I can use in the branch?" Lan Bing was still expressionless. "We'll have to meet Mr. May to find out." Walking along the hall, Ding Meng finally saw a familiar oversized machine in another space that was similar to the induction hall. It was the praiseworthy server that flowed with silver liquid metal like a pumpkin. This was not the most advanced server, but the internal network used to maintain the internal operation of Blue Moon, which was limited to the scope of the Snow Peak building. The surroundings were naturally filled with sensor cabins of various sizes. A young lad was fiddling with data in front of the main control panel. Lan Bing said softly, "Mr. May." The young lad turned around and immediately trotted over. "President Lan, long time no see." Mason was indeed very young. Judging from his appearance, he seemed to be in his 30s. Also, he was tall and thin, wearing a pair of low-light glasses, giving the impression that he was an apprentice. No matter how one looked at him, he didn't look like a warframe master. In fact, Ding Meng didn't know that although Mei Sun was recommended by the headquarters, he was not popular. The reason was simple. In the field of warframes, besides talent, experience was especially important. Without years of immersion in piles of hundreds and thousands of materials, it was impossible to form a solid foundation. Therefore, famous warframe masters were mostly experienced old men. Mei Sun, on the other hand, did not take the orthodox path. He often had some crazy ideas, and the warframes he came up with were neither fish nor fowl. Therefore, he was not in an important position. However, after Lan Bing took over, she paid special attention to him and specially allocated a separate R&D hall for him to use. Therefore, he was very respectful to Lan Bing. Even the most experienced warframe master in the Blue Moon branch did not receive such treatment. "Is this Secretary Ding?" Mason asked. Ding Meng nodded and said, "Nice to meet you." Mason was not stupid. Lan Bing must have called him to see the warframe. It was reasonable to say that she could see it through the low-light glasses. However, at this moment, Lan Bing personally brought Ding Meng here, which meant that the new Secretary Ding was not only valued by the president, but also the one who would be using the warframe. "May I ask how old Secretary Ding is this year?" Mei Sun asked. Before Ding Meng could speak, Lan Bing answered for him. "He is 31 years old." "Oh." Mei Sun nodded thoughtfully. "Okay, President Lan, Secretary Ding, let's not waste time. Let's talk on the intranet." Naturally, the intranet was a virtual space entered through the induction cabin. However, Mason's virtual space was the top floor of the Snow Peak building's circular parking apron. It covered an area of hundreds of thousands of square meters, which was enough to test all kinds of warframes. Ding Meng soon understood why Mei Sun asked about his age. At this moment, Mei Sun was standing in the middle of the square and casually waving his hand. Light screens appeared out of thin air, showing all kinds of warframes. Mei Sun was already explaining, "Secretary Ding, please choose according to your needs. I guarantee that these are the best products in Blue Pole Star City." Ding Meng only glanced at them and could not help but frown. "Mr. May, the highest conversion index of these warframes is only 3 million. Mei Sun was a little dissatisfied. The word only was used very well. Did he think that it was too little? Lan Bing asked, what is the conversion ratio? Mei Sun immediately said, the Warframe is configured with Sheng Hao's aristocrat number 5 source core body. The conversion ratio is 2 to 5 times. Aristocrat number 5 was Sheng Hao's most mature source core body technology. It was suitable for almost all types of Warframes, and it was extremely stable. However, after hearing his explanation, Ding Ming immediately calculated the result. If the conversion ratio of 5 times was the highest, then Hell Mode's conversion ratio would be 3 million. In other words, the Warframe soldier's origin energy index would be around 600,000, which was equivalent to an intermediate or advanced war venerable. Mason obviously thought that Ding Meng's strength was only at the war venerable level since he was only 30 years old. Ding Meng smiled and said, Mr. Mei, I can't use these Warframes. Mei Sun nodded with an expression that said, then do you want to switch to a batch of Warframes with a lower conversion ratio? Ding Meng said apologetically, Mr. Mei, you misunderstood me. What I meant was that if I use these Warframes, they will malfunction. Malfunction? Mei Sin's eyes widened. Are you sure you're not joking with me? Ding Meng also knew that this guy was young and definitely didn't believe him. Okay, you'll know when you try one out. Mei Sun was indeed a very direct person. Without saying anything else, he swiped on the screen, and a silver Warframe box appeared on the ground. However, Ding Meng didn't move. Aren't you going to wear it? Mei Sun wondered. Ding Meng smiled and said, I don't need to wear it. Open it. Mei Sun looked at him suspiciously. Then, he used his glasses to directly open the box. A majestic, 5-colored Warframe in the shape of an angel stood in the plaza. This was the enhanced version of the Tyrell Warframe. How are you going to test it? This was the first time Mei Sun had encountered a freak who directly tested the Warframe without wearing it. Ding Meng was also very direct. He flew up and kicked the Warframe machine's thigh. This 5-meter-tall, 20-ton Warframe immediately turned into a spinning top. It whistled from the plaza and landed in the distance like a cannonball. Finally, it crashed into the glass wall outside the Xinfeng building. With a loud boom, the Warframe turned into a fireball. It felt as if the 10th floor of the building had been blasted full of holes. The blast of the explosion blew past Mei Sin's face. With a click, Mei Sin's low-light glasses fell to the ground. How is it, Mr. Mei Sun? Mr. Mei, Ding Meng said lightly. I told you that you don't need to wear it. Mr. Mei, Mr. Mei? Mr. Mei was stunned. It took him a long time to come back to his senses. This was the first time he had encountered someone who could test the Warframe without wearing it. This freak had destroyed the Warframe with a single kick. What kind of freak was this? You're really only 30 years old this year? Mei Sun turned around. His face was full of shock. Lan Bing nodded and said, Secretary Ding is indeed this age. Mei Sun understood. Secretary Ding's strength was far beyond that of a warlord. He waved his hand again, and the dozens of screens disappeared. This time, more than 10 new Warframes appeared, and they were the kind that had already taken shape. All kinds of data rose in Ding Meng's vision. This was the benefit of being in a virtual space. The system automatically showed the basic information of the Warframe. Ding Meng's gaze fell on the dark blue Warframe. This was the second-generation upgraded version of the Hercules Warframe. First, the lower body was strengthened, the mechanical feet were completely thickened, and the alloy shield was removed. Obviously, they had considered the problem of clumsiness in battle. In addition, the engine and system had been greatly optimized. Ding Meng glanced at the load value and couldn't help but nod. The upper limit was 500 million points, and the core conversion rate was 7 times. In other words, according to Mei Sin's evaluation, he regarded Ding Meng as a high-level warlord. After equipping the second-generation Hercules Warframe, Ding Meng's index could soar to the mid-level warlord level. He thought that Ding Meng would be satisfied this time. Unexpectedly, Ding Meng sighed and said, Mr. Mei, with all due respect, no matter how you improve this Warframe, you can't avoid a problem. It always relies on energy and technology for close combat. Although it won't lose to some long-range warframes, it will inevitably be at a disadvantage. Mei Sun looked at Ding Meng in a new light. Secretary Ding, are you a soldier? Ding Meng had not been certified in this regard, but it was not wrong to say that he was a soldier. This was because his telekinesis now gave him a photographic memory. The speed at which he familiarized himself with the warframe was many times faster than a normal person. Lan Bing smiled and said, Mr. Mei, I'll be honest with you. Do you have any new designs here that can make the index exceed 10 billion points? Mei Sun's eyes widened. His eyes were full of disbelief. More than 10 billion points? Isn't that the legendary warlord level? He didn't say the second half of his sentence. In other words, this young Secretary Ding in front of him was no less than a high-level warlord. It was very likely that he was a terrifying warlord. No wonder the president valued him so much. Mei Sun smiled bitterly. President Lan, you think too highly of me. Even if it were the warframe masters of the entire Sheng Hao group, no one would be able to make a sample like that. It's too difficult. He didn't say anything definite. Ding Meng hurriedly said, Then please give me some advice, Mr. Mei. Chapter 648. Ding Meng and Lan Bing didn't really understand the difficulty Mei Sun was talking about, but it was easy enough to understand. A suit of armor suitable for Ding Meng couldn't be made on an assembly line. It had to be a high-end product, and the biggest problem was the material. For a battle saint, the thermal element could reach an extremely high temperature of tens of thousands of degrees. The ice element could drop to absolute zero. The light element could reach a speed of over 1,000 meters, and the electromagnetism element could withstand strong electric fusion. What kind of armor material could withstand such torment? Therefore, it was impossible to use ordinary metal materials, even super alloys. Many people might have thought that nanomaterials were just right, but there was a problem. Nanochromium porcelain was usually used in starship reactors or power furnaces. Its mass was too large, and it was too cumbersome. It was not suitable for origin ability users to display their skills. Mei Sun suddenly waved his hand, and two new screens appeared in the air. This time, it wasn't a suit of armor, but two strange things. The first screen showed something that looked like a piece of animal skin. It was green and soft, like a smooth and flat blanket. Ding Meng asked curiously, What is this? Mei Sun said seriously, This is the Frogman Kingdom's biotechnology. Its name is green light, and it's an amazing material. It's extremely flexible and resistant to fire and water, and it can fuse with all kinds of metals. It was taken from the Frogman Army's commander. Ding Meng knew the ranks of the Frogman Army: warrior, general, warlord, commander, army commander. The Federal Empire's standard was around the Origin Battle Monarch rank. In a one-on-one fight, 10 Frogman Army commanders wouldn't be a match for a human battle monarch. However, a single Frogman Army commander could command millions of frogmen. The power they could unleash on the battlefield was not something a human battle monarch could compare to. In other words, this green light was an extremely rare material. Mei Sun flipped through the screens. The second screen showed an umbrella-shaped object. It looked a bit like a jellyfish, with a milky white body that wriggled. Mei Sun explained, I know you guys think this is a jellyfish, but it's not. This material is called Rosy Cloud. Rosia? Lan Bing's interest was piqued. That's a nice name. Mei Sun said seriously, This material can adapt to most environments in the universe. It's ever-changing and immune to all poisons. It's a poison gland secreted by the great elder of the devouring world after it evolved more than 5 times. After a long time, it became a material after it faded. At the same time, it's also a resource for cultivating void spirit skates. The reason why the extraordinary beasts of the devouring world can resist the attacks of starships in space is because of this soft glow. Ding Meng gasped in admiration. He was not surprised by the rarity of this material, but by how rich the Sheng Hao group was. How'd they get this thing? Mei Sun continued to explain, In my opinion, if Secretary Ding really needs it, then these two materials could be used as a foundation. We can slowly determine the production steps. He was indeed a crazy warframe operator. No one else would dare to come up with such bold ideas like him. Lon Bing asked, "The Blue Moon branch has these two materials?" "Yes." Mason nodded affirmatively. "But it needs the authorization of the headquarters." The authorization he was talking about was not just a simple authorization. Using all these resources would cost an astronomical amount. Lon Bing would have to withstand the pressure from her superiors and authorize him to produce it. If he failed, then Lon Bing's position as the CEO would be over. Lon Bing also asked seriously, "How confident are you?" Mason was very calm. "At least 60%. 60% sounded very confident, but in fact, the success rate was almost zero. A brand new warframe required a warframe operator to think about it many times, develop the theory, simulate it hundreds of times, and test it step by step thousands of times. Only when the warframe operator was 90% confident would they dare to start the production. 60% confidence was simply too risky. Lon Bing did not say much. She walked to the side and turned on the light screen on her wrist device. It seemed that she was talking to Yuanjia. Ding Meng could see clearly that the person she was talking to was Yuanjia. Not long after, Lon Bing returned with a gloomy face. "The headquarters has agreed to your request, in principle." Mason's eyes lit up. Just as he was about to express his gratitude, Lon Bing continued. "However, the headquarters has two requirements. First, you can only use one of the two materials, and you can't use more than 10 units. F***K. Mason almost cursed. 10 units is more likely to be enough for you to make armor. Don't even think about warframes. Of course, Mason also knew that the headquarters must have considered the risks. If the application of these materials failed, even 1,000 warframe operators like him would not be able to make a loss even if they sold them. Lon Bing continued. "Second, if the application fails, you'll be fired, and so will I. Now, I'm giving you a choice. Do you want to continue? Then let's continue." This voice came from Ding Meng. Mason's eyes widened again, as if he was looking at a lunatic. Lon Bing's beautiful eyes flashed, and she seemed to be surprised. Ding Meng looked at her meaningfully and said casually, "I'll take responsibility." Mason thought that this was just bragging. How could a small secretary like you take responsibility for something like this? However, Lon Bing understood it differently. This was exactly what she had said last night. "I want you to take responsibility." In fact, Ding Meng had seen Lon Bing's conversation with Yuanjia. Yuanjia did not mention a second requirement, and it was all Lon Bing's own idea. Of course, Ding Meng also understood that Lon Bing was helping him under great pressure, so he took the initiative to ask to continue. "Then you guys can start. I'll go up first." Lon Bing's image quickly disappeared from the virtual space. This was the principle of avoidance, because the warframe operator had to make the warframe according to the individual's characteristics. This included Ding Meng's height, weight, strength, skills, secret manuals, offensive and defensive methods, style, and so on. Ding Meng had chosen the material Rosy Dawn because the effect of the green light was not much different from the original prototype. That was the biological technology of the Frogman Kingdom, and Rosy Dawn was a product of the Devourer world. He was very curious to see what effect it would have on Warframe. Mason was very efficient. He held a low-light brush in his hand and quickly drew in the air according to Ding Meng's instructions. All kinds of data, formulas, and patterns were constantly refreshed. Ding Meng's requirements were also quite abnormal. Speed, strength, defense, attack, damage, protection, support. He wanted all of them. Back when he was still in the Norse Empire, he had also asked Rulin for the same thing. Rulin had said that it was impossible, but Mason did not say much from the beginning to the end. He recorded all of the requirements, including good at camouflage and concealment, double the range of reconnaissance, suitable for ambushes and assassinations, preferably capable of long-range attacks. He did not raise any objections throughout the process. "Can you meet these requirements?" Ding Meng was a little worried. Mason said, "In theory, yes, but I can't guarantee it. I can only say that I'll try my best to meet your requirements, but I'm afraid you'll have to wait patiently for it to be completed." "How long do I have to wait?" In Ding Meng's mind, It usually took several years for a new warframe to be completed from the beginning of research and development to the final product. However, since Mason was valued by Lan Bing, he thought that he must be quite capable. It would be best if he could finish it in half a year or 8 months. Unexpectedly, Mason said, 3 days. I'll try my best to finish it in 3 days. 3 days? This time, it was Ding Ming's turn to be surprised. Mr. Mason, are you sure you're not joking with me? Mason said seriously. You don't believe me? Ding Ming hurriedly waved his hand. That's not what I meant. I just think that Mr. Mason is too fast. Mason said proudly. That's because you don't know the advantages of Shenghao Group. This Blue Moon division is the base for manufacturing warframe components. What Shenghao Group is most proud of is all kinds of advanced technology. What's more, the resources here are unimaginable to the workshops outside. Also, there are commendable servers for precise processing. Thousands of tests per second. I'm already considered slow. Those old men at the headquarters can finish it in a day. I see. Ding Ming's expression became thoughtful. If Mason could succeed in 3 days, then they could wait until the new warframe was completed. After leaving the technology center, Ding Ming did not stop at the Snow Peak building. Instead, he drove directly to Yibao. According to Liang Yuran's arrangement, Long Feiyu would first go to planet KV-303 to pick up Su Xia, then meet up with Meng Yin in the outer space of Blue Moon. Finally, they would wait until Ding Ming was ready. Naturally, they would take Long Feiyu's private carrier. This trip was also a business from Yibao that Long Feiyu had accepted. Liang Yuran wanted to buy a large number of materials and paid a deposit of up to 5 million galactic credits. This deposit was actually a kind of prepayment, because the peddler's carrier ships could not take the regular route. If they encountered the military's patrol fleet, it would be quite troublesome. Just the routine inspection would often take a long time. In the eyes of the peddlers, the concept of time and money was the same. First come, first served. If the peddlers did not get there, then they would lose money. Therefore, the carrier ships were usually modified. They either had ion engines or short-distance space transmission. If they flew from Azure Star to Planet Beidou at normal speed, it would take 6 months. However, if they used a fixed coordinate for short-distance transmission, it would only take 12 days to arrive, which saved a lot of time. Of course, this kind of operation consumed a lot of energy, so the trading company had to pay a deposit first. Overall, Liang Yuran did earn money for her hard work, and this also showed how much she owed Fu Zhonghui back then. It should be known that Long Feiyu picked up Gulaga and Silman from the border of the Empire in only 3 days. It was estimated that the ion engine coupled with the space transmission was used continuously, completely ignoring the cost. Chapter 649. For the next 3 days, Ding Ming returned to Huading Mountain Villa and stayed in the villa's main hall to cultivate. For him, he had more or less mastered all kinds of martial arts, so there was nothing he didn't know. In fact, at his level, those fancy things were actually impractical. Battle Sage level powerhouses focused on returning to their origin, returning to their natural state. However, from Mason's words, he learned of another legendary level, Origin Energy War God. This level wasn't officially adopted by the Federal Empire. Instead, it was defined by countless Origin ability users. The standard was to break through 10 billion points in Origin Ability Index. Many people thought that after breaking through to a certain level, they would be able to grasp more mysterious and powerful things. However, in the information provided by the International Space Network, there was no mention of a fierce person at the Origin Energy War God level. Of course, this didn't mean that there weren't any. It was just that when one's index broke through the 10 billion mark, the amount of martial arts secret manuals that one could learn from basic cultivation methods was basically non-existent. It didn't mean that one's index couldn't be reached. Ding Ming was thinking. According to what Little Rascal had said before, his Diamond Star art could definitely break through, but martial arts secret manuals could only be explored by himself. It was time to properly practice teacher Zhao Yu's solitary sword of Zhao, and heavenly sword 13 styles. During these 3 days of cultivation, the strange thing was that Lan Bing didn't return to the villa. Ding Meng also didn't know what she was doing. As the president of Sheng Hao's branch, one could see how busy she was. At noon on the 4th day, Mason finally sent a message. Success! Hurry back! Ding Meng was overjoyed. Without saying anything else, he drove straight to the Xiefeng building. In the Kajia server of the technology center, the virtual space had been changed to a cliff on the east coast of Blue Pole Star City. Mason's mirror image was standing at the edge of the cliff. He was surrounded by a large screen of light, but he was fiddling with the screens, seemingly analyzing the data. Secretary Ding, come. Mason called out as he waved his hand in the air. The many screens merged into one, forming an extremely large screen. On the screen, there was a black humanoid battle armor in the center. Ding Meng's first reaction was, sure enough, the thoughts of experts are the same. It seems that Mason and Yao Manru have the same thoughts. This battle suit was too similar to the first prototype. It was too unremarkable and too ordinary, just like a suit of armor. If one did not examine it carefully, one would think that it was just a simple mechanical suit. However, Ding Meng knew that there must be something more to it. Mason was already explaining. Normal source cores can no longer support the armor that can be used by Battlelords and Battle Saints, so the core was changed to a hypercore. Ding Meng could understand this logic. The principle of a source core was to multiply origin energy, but what was converted was not the purest form of origin energy. It was a combination of origin energy, crystal energy, nuclear energy, electrical energy, technological energy, and so on. In terms of data, it was multiplied. However, normal origin energy index was in the tens of thousands, so the source core could still support it. However, people at the Battlelord level and above had origin energy index in the hundreds of millions, so the source core had to be replaced with a hypercore. The hypercore wasn't some kind of advanced technology. Simply put, it was an upgraded version of the source core. However, the energy it converted, including crystal energy, magnetic energy, superconductive energy, and other types of energy, was very small. Most of it was still the soldiers' own origin energy. Mason said, I set it according to your parameters. Watch carefully. On the screen, the armor suddenly raised its hand and pushed forward. In the 3D image, it could be clearly seen that this was the most standard Holy Tiger sun palm. The wind generated by the palm was marked by all kinds of densely packed lines. The origin energy mirror image quickly appeared. It was like a burning tiger's head was about to bite the enemy. However, an incredible scene occurred. The tiger's head was only halfway through when it turned into the shape of a giant palm with a boom. Its volume increased by at least 5 times. It was simply like the Buddha's palm. Ding Meng was stunned. Did you change the form of the battle technique? Mason nodded. The armor itself plays a catalytic and even evolutionary role. Not only that, but its conversion capacity has also increased. This is an adjustment made according to your thermodynamic characteristics. The only flaw is that it can only withstand 3 times the conversion rate. As for the real effect, it will depend on your actual combat. Ding Meng cursed in his heart. This armor alone was many times stronger than the models of Hercules, Tyrell, and Scanna. Mason continued. Secondly, because of the authorization from the headquarters, only 10 units of Rosia are allowed to be used, so it is inevitable to add metal components. However, I changed my approach. I gave up on nanomaterials and some alloy materials and changed it to liquid gold. This is a brand new liquid metal developed by the headquarters of Shenghao Group. The model is 3T times Y-12. The armor on the screen began to move again. Many spikes and steel plates extended from the original human form of the armor. The overall appearance was changing. It was the most popular, colorful, powerful, and domineering style on the market. Mason said, it can adapt to different environments. There are 4 types of forms. I won't show you one by one here because there are many changes involved. After you come down, you have to read and use the memory chip well. Ding Meng had already seen that the armor was constantly changing its shape. It had almost merged all the forms of armor on the market. In other words, It was a multifunctional armor. Unexpectedly, Mason said, "I've named this armor Prince Turns into a Frog." Dingmeng was confused. "Why did you give it such a strange name?" Mason said, "There are reasons. First of all, why is it called Prince and not King? It's because the father is better than the son. Although Prince is very strong, it is actually not mature. You know the reason. There are too few Rosia materials. Why is it strong? The reason is also because of Rosia. With the components I added, it has very powerful camouflage, stealth, and stealth functions. In terms of auxiliary functions, it is extremely high-end." Dingmeng was impressed. He really admired the thinking of these Warframe masters. Such an awesome armor was actually described as a son. Mason said, "Let's talk about the biggest advantage of Prince. I didn't install a technological weapon system because you don't need it anymore. You are the most powerful weapon. So the main idea of the weapon system is to combine your general telekinesis with your catoptr deflection to give it an unparalleled offensive ability. Then, Rosia and a liquid gold will give it an insane defense. You will experience this in the future." Dingmeng asked curiously, "Then why did you call a frog?" Mason frowned. "That's the weakness of this armor." Dingmeng quickly asked, "What are its weaknesses?" Mason counted with his fingers and said, "First, it has a natural enemy. If you encounter an enemy at the level of the Devouring Realm's Sect Master or Queen, you must not equip it. No matter how strong you are, once you equip it, you'll be finished. This is because the Rosia is a poisonous material secreted by monsters at the level of the Great Elder. The Sect Master and Queen are far superior to the Great Elder. They have many ways to destroy the Rosia, and they can even melt it and recycle it." Dingmeng nodded seriously. "Understood." Mason said, "Second, the hypercore itself has a lot of drawbacks. It no longer relies on the crystal energy engine of a normal armor, but your own energy. In layman's terms, the armor's power is provided by your own energy. When you are full of energy and your telekinesis is normal, it is unusually sharp. If you're not in good condition or are seriously injured, its operation will be greatly reduced. You still have to remember the principles behind it." Dingmeng nodded and said, "I'll read it carefully." Mason said, "Third, I've actually thought about this armor when I was studying in St. Brilliant's College. However, I couldn't make it into reality without enough resources. But now I've taken the risk. Although it has taken shape, I found that its maintenance cost is too expensive to be measured by money. Once something like Rosia is damaged, it is impossible for us humans to repair it with our technology. Only the super monsters of the Devourer's sect have the ability to repair it. So, we have to change the materials. So, do you know what I mean?" Dingmeng certainly understood. The repair materials had to be obtained from the hinterland of the Devourer's sect. Even for battle saints, who could guarantee that they could come back alive from such a place? Mason finally said something shocking. "So, if I'm not mistaken, this is a limited edition armor. Once it is damaged, it can't be repaired. In other words, it is a one-time consumable." Dingmeng sighed. "I will make good use of it." Mason said seriously, "You have to make good use of it because it is too expensive." Dingmeng asked tentatively, "How much is it worth in star coins?" Mason looked at him meaningfully. "I can only reveal to you that it's a 12-digit production cost." "Oh my God!" Dingmeng suddenly wanted to scream. A 12-digit cost of 100 billion star coins. This was too scary. Low-end armor, like the Black Rock Knight, was only worth a few hundred million. Tyrell's market price was 5 billion. Even the second-generation Hercules retail price was only 8 billion. But this Prince Transformed Frog cost more than 100 billion star coins. It really was a prince transformed into a frog. So this Prince Transformed Frog is comparable to a large starship? Dingmeng's eyes widened. Mason nodded. Yes, it can even withstand the full force of a starship's main cannon. As long as you are strong enough, it can even withstand the bombardment of a railgun. Dingmeng was dumbfounded. Wasn't this invincible? Mason said calmly, "It is not invincible. As far as I know, there are even more powerful armors than this Prince Transformed Frog, and they're all used by battle saints. So, I need to remind you that no matter how advanced and powerful the armor's functions are, the real power is still you origin ability users. In the end, you will find that you have to rely on yourself. Thank you for your reminder, Mr. Mason. I will keep it in mind, Ding Ming said gratefully. He admired Mason, not only for his ability, but also for his philosophy. An excellent armor master could not only create crazy armor, but also accurately analyze its advantages and disadvantages. It was just like practicing martial arts. It was not a skill to be able to use it, but it was a skill to be able to withdraw it. This was the so-called ability to withdraw and release at will. Mason said, "You can rest assured. Although the Sheng Hao group owns the armor, it is your exclusive right to use it. I have sealed all information about you and the design of this armor. I will have someone send the finished product to the president's office later." Chapter 650. When he returned to the CEO's office on the top floor, Lan Bing was still handling company affairs at her desk. Ding Ming did not disturb her and sat down on the sofa alone. Only then did he notice a special wristwatch on the coffee table. This wristwatch was bulky and looked very old compared to the luxury watches of Sheng Hao Group. Its grayish-brown exterior made it look silly and thick. "What is this?" Ding Ming was curious. "This is a pass for you." Lan Bing slowly stood up from her seat. "A pass." Ding Ming was even more curious. Lan Bing walked over. "Planet Beidou is like an independent kingdom. Not everyone can go there. You must have a pass. This wristwatch has an entry and exit card for Nanling City. Otherwise, it would be useless if you can't enter Nanling City when you get to Planet Beidou." Ding Ming opened the wristwatch and found that this wristwatch was an anonymous product. This meant that he could use this system as a cover for multiple identities. Lan Bing was very thoughtful. Ding Ming said gratefully, "Thank you." Lan Bing then sat down opposite him. "You're welcome. It's nothing." Ding Ming could not help but smile bitterly. It was indeed easy for her to get these things, but it was hard for others to get them. After fiddling with the wristwatch for a while, he found that the anonymous information card in the wristwatch had a total of 13 billion star coins. He was even more surprised. "Where did this money come from?" Lan Bing said, "Once you get there, you won't be able to move an inch without money. What you're going to do is definitely not trivial, so you'll have to spend a lot of money." Ding Ming said hesitantly, "Is this my salary as a secretary?" "You're overthinking it." Lan Bing replied calmly. "This is my personal savings for the past 30 years. I started at Haitian Group and worked at Sheng Hao Group. It wasn't easy to save this much." This was indeed an astronomical figure for an ordinary person. Although Lan Bing's status was not low, it was not easy to save up 13 billion. Ding Ming could not figure out what the woman was up to this time. He only felt that the wristband was a little hot. "Does this count as a private stash?" "Yes." Lan Bing's expression didn't change. "You can also see it as an investment." "Investment? Not using Sheng Hao's money to invest, but using your own savings?" What was the meaning of this? Lan Bing explained, "If the investment is successful, we might have to leave the Blue Moon branch." Ding Ming wondered if he would be transferred to the headquarters. He also knew that the Yu siblings appreciated him very much. Yuan Jie was worried that he wouldn't have the chance to officially recruit Lan Bing to Saint Splendor. "What if you fail?" Ding Ming was curious. Lan Bing's expression sank. "If you fail, then you won't be able to come back. You'll have nothing left." Ding Ming was silent. Is Planet Beidou really that dangerous? Lan Bing sighed. "Don't underestimate that place. It's completely different from the Federation. Many people want to make a fortune there, but very few come out alive. For many people, it's a path of no return." Ding Ming stared at her suspiciously. He said meaningfully, "You know quite a lot." Lan Bing waved her hand and changed the topic. "When are you leaving?" Ding Ming said, "Tonight." Lan Bing said, "All right, you could go now." Ding Ming had just stood up when Lan Bing called out to him again. "Wait." Ding Ming said, "Is there anything else you want to tell me?" Lan Bing said seriously, "Even though you're very suspicious of me, I still have to tell you that I'll wait for you to come back." Ding Ming sighed. Sometimes, he had a feeling that even he couldn't tell which of her words was true and which were false. "All right. Thank you for your concern." Ding Ming said half-heartedly. However, Lan Bing didn't say anything else. She stared at him with her black eyes. Ding Ming's expression froze. He had actually received a telepathic message from Lan Bing. You know how to link minds too? Ding Ming was shocked. He had forgotten that Lan Bing had also cultivated telekinesis. Ding Ming immediately activated his telekinesis and probed forward. In the pitch-black blind spot, two auroras merged and quickly established a complete telepathic link. Do you believe that I'm telling the truth now? Lan Bing's message arrived. Ding Ming immediately sensed that Lan Bing was telling the truth. What's more, through the message, Ding Ming even saw some of Lan Bing's experiences over the past 7 years. After the Battle of the Water Droplet, the Haitian group had lost its leader, Chu Ming Liang, and its fortunes had plummeted. The Chu family had been taken over by Chu Zhongyu. Chu Zhongyu was known for his lecherous nature. Back then, with Chu Ming Liang and Chu Yifeng around, Chu Zhongyu had not dared to be impudent. But now that he had become the leader of the Chu family, Chu Zhongyu had set his sights on Lan Bing. This was a woman that even Chu Ming Liang had set his sights on. Of course, with Chu Zhongyu's strength, he couldn't have gotten his way. However, the price was that Lan Bing was chased out of Haitian group. Just as Lan Bing had said, without the protection of a powerful figure, a woman like her was easily targeted by others. Ding Ming was surprised to see that Lan Bing, who had left the Haitian group, was still being watched by Dai Yi's third brother, Dai Ningxing. He had an impression of that Dai Ningxing. When they were at Star Splendor University, he was Jiang Hai's follower. If this was in the past, Dai Ningxing wouldn't have dared to have any ideas about Lan Bing. However, after Lan Bing lost power, he used the Dai clan's name to invite her. Bai Qingyun and Bai Qingxi were also with him. On the surface, these young masters wanted to recruit talents. In reality, they wanted to trick Lan Bing into joining them so that they could do it on the sea. However, how could Lan Bing be so easily fooled? Both sides had fought on the East China Sea yacht. Lan Bing had been seriously injured by the Bai family's bodyguards. If Meng Yin had not arrived in time to save her, she would have been dead meat. Ding Ming suddenly understood. After he caused trouble in the Flying Star City, Lan Bing immediately summoned him as her secretary. Obviously, she was demonstrating to the Dai clan and the Bai clan that she was opposing them. It seemed that many things were not without reason. After that, Lan Bing recuperated in the Dragon-Slaying Corps in outer space for more than half a year before her injuries were healed. Ding Ming now knew that Lan Bing had a habit. Every time she suffered a big loss, she deliberately left some scars on her body as a memento, reminding herself not to forget the lesson. Ding Ming sighed and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't expect that I would bring you so much trouble after I left." Lan Bing was expressionless as she said coldly, "It's not your fault. I was careless on the yacht that time. I thought that with the prestige of the Dai clan and the Bai clan in Blue Pole Star City, they wouldn't do such a dirty thing. However, a few little bastards completely exceeded my understanding. The experts of the Bai clan actually poisoned my drink in advance." Ding Ming suddenly fell silent. At that time, Lan Bing was not yet a warlord. She was just a high-level war venerable with a profound foundation. She was probably not poisoned but drugged. Once the origin was destroyed, even Dai Ningxing would not be able to deal with it. "Were your injuries?" Ding Ming also learned from the information that Lan Bing was more seriously injured than ever in the battle on the yacht. Not only was she seriously injured, but Meng Yan, who came to rescue her, was also seriously injured. If it weren't for Meng Yan's phantom technique, which allowed her to come and go without a trace, the two women would have suffered. Lan Bing stared at him and asked, "Are you sure you want to see it?" Normally, Ding Ming would definitely admit defeat, but this time he took a deep breath and said, "Let me see it." "Okay then," Lan Bing said decisively. "Take off my pants." Ding Ming was stunned. Was her injury in her lower body? Lan Bing sneered and said, "You don't dare? Or are you afraid?" Ding Ming sighed and said, "I've never had the habit of taking off a woman's pants, but I'll make an exception this time." After saying that, he quickly lowered his head and slightly exerted force with his eyes. Lan Bing's light gray women's trousers were immediately removed by his telekinesis, and her high heels were removed. Even Ding Ming, who had always been extremely calm, was stunned this time. His face was as red as a monkey's, but because other than the trousers, Lan Bing was only wearing a pink triangular underwear. Her pair of white, jade-like legs were completely exposed to the air. Her legs were like a flawless work of art. No matter how one looked at them, they were impeccable, and they were comparable to Misty's. However, there was a huge flaw at the hip joint. A shocking dark red scar was embedded in it, and it looked like a terrifying centipede was entrenched there. It was a horrifying sight. Lan Bing suddenly said, "Can you wipe the blood off your nose first?" I'm bleeding? Ding Ming lowered his head again and realized that he really was having a nosebleed. Damn, I'm a battle saint, and I can't even take this kind of stimulation. My blood vessels are overflowing, and I'm having a nosebleed. Ding Ming tried his best to control his emotions, but he still felt a fire burning in his heart. This kind of lively scene could kill him. He took a deep breath and said, "This was caused by a weapon like a serrated sword, right?" Lan Bing nodded. "My left leg was completely shattered at the time, and Sister Yin broke it again when we were escaping." She said it casually, but Ding Ming could still imagine it. Lan Bing must have gritted her teeth and persevered on Meng Yan's spaceship when a mercenary group escaped from Blue Pole Star City all the way to outer space. It was no wonder that she didn't show him the footage of her escape. Ding Ming took 2 steps forward, and his tone finally softened. "If I remember correctly, you weren't even a high-level battle saint at that time," Lan Bing said coldly. "During the few hours we were flying out of the Azure system, I was in so much pain that I fainted 6 times. Ding Ming stared at her. "But you still persevered." Lan Bing didn't answer. She just looked a little dazed. Ding Ming said, "Why didn't you heal this scar?" Lan Bing said, "You should be able to tell that it wasn't that I didn't want to heal it, but that it couldn't be healed at all." Ding Ming squatted down and carefully scanned the centipede-like scar with his telekinesis vision. This time, he didn't let Lan Bing's lower body distract him. Instead, he focused on scanning the scar. A moment later, he said in surprise, "A strange poison from a devouring world?" Lan Bing said indifferently, "The Bai family has a few experts who use poison." Ding Ming was even more surprised. "You were only a battle saint at that time, but they actually used a poison from the devouring world to deal with you?" Lan Bing acted as if she was describing something very normal. "This is an aphrodisiac from the devouring world. Those monsters will only use it before they devour each other to mate. If a human accidentally ingests it, it's enough to turn a woman below the battle master level into a female wolf in heat." Ding Ming understood now. If it weren't for the fact that Lan Bing was a biochemical origin ability user and had risked her life to break through and become a battle general, she wouldn't have been able to control the spread of this poison. She might have turned into a strange freak like Jean Tai and the others. Lan Bing knew what he was thinking. The Shenghao group originally wanted to get their hands on Jean Tai and the others' technology, but I knew that they were your old friends and Sister Yan's family, so I didn't accept the order from the headquarters. No wonder the Shenghao group's headquarters hadn't asked about Jean Tai and the others' whereabouts. She had obviously helped them in secret. Ding Ming knew that he owed her a favor again. He said seriously, "I can heal it." Lan Bing's tone softened. "You fused with the K-virus. If you don't heal it, I'll be crippled sooner or later." Chapter 651. Ding Ming thought for a moment and said, "Can you turn off your vision first?" "That's right. That's right," Lan Bing replied. Sure, once she turned off her telekinetic vision, the two of them would no longer have any blind spots. Ding Ming sighed. "Please forgive me if I offend you in any way." Lan Bing seemed to be aware of his treatment method, and she replied coldly, "That's all in the past. Do you think I'll still be bothered by that?" Ding Ming nodded and placed a hand on Lan Bing's hip joint. This time, he did his best to dispel all distracting thoughts. The golden blood in his palm flowed into Lan Bing's body, and his telekinesis flowed through her body in tandem with origin energy. Soon, he could see clearly that the origin structure in Lan Bing's body was very complicated. There were 5 relatively large blue origin points around her heart. This was obviously her ice elemental cultivation method. He did not expect it to be a 5-star one. Next, there were many tiny origin points on her face. Most likely, it was a biochemical cultivation technique. Next was the origin points in her brain. There were more than 20 origin points embedded in her memory system. This was probably where she had been able to use illusions to attack in the past, and it had evolved into an application-type telekinesis technique. Apart from this, Lan Bing's 4 limbs were also densely packed with origin points. These origin points were extremely small, and they were connected together like a grid. These were definitely the origin points of the light element. Lan Bing's body could be said to be the standard multi-element cultivation technique of the Federation. Ding Ming couldn't help but sigh inwardly when he thought about how powerful his Mao Xing technique was. He only needed to construct 10 origin points in his heart and brain. He didn't even need to cultivate the origin points in his martial arts techniques to surpass the hundreds of origin points on Lan Bing's body. The K-virus had already entered her body, and the toxins were quickly dispersed. The scars healed on their own, but Ding Ming injected a small amount of pure smelted origin points into her body. If you can't take any more, make a sound. This small amount of energy was no small matter. It instantly stimulated all the origin points in her body, causing them to spin wildly and grow continuously. If Su Xiao were present at this moment, she would know what Ding Ming was doing. This was a classic example of a high-level origin ability user helping a low-level origin ability user. This was because Ding Ming had used this method to forcefully raise her strength. Ding Ming had studied all the cultivation methods and martial arts techniques that they cultivated in his database and memory. It was equivalent to instantly recasting the starting point for them. Of course, it was impossible to promote a pure warlord in such a short time. He could only forcibly inject energy into the starting point, just like how he smelted the space. Afterward, Lan Bing would digest the energy on her own. Ding Ming was impressed by Lan Bing's strength. She hadn't said a word from the beginning to the end. Lan Bing's body was very cold. He didn't know if it was because of the ice element, but as he continued to pour energy into her body started to heat up. About 2 minutes later, Lan Bing finally spoke. Ding Ming, have you seen enough? Ding Ming realized that Lan Bing's pink panties were less than a meter away from the tip of his nose. He couldn't help but feel a burning sensation on his face. Lan Bing continued, have you touched enough? Ding Ming had no choice but to stop. If Yulingwei were here right now, she would probably be so shocked that her jaw would drop. This kind of weird posture, if you guys aren't doing some kind of indescribable thing, then I can jump down from this 1,000th floor. Lan Bing's face was flushed, but her expression was still cold. Why aren't you putting on my pants? Ding Ming hurriedly got up. The moment he got up, he used his telekinesis to help her fasten her pants. However, Lan Bing was dissatisfied. You idiot, I didn't put my shirt inside my belt. Ding Ming's brain was burning. Why do you have so many buckles on your belt? How do I fasten them? Lan Bing rolled her eyes. Forget it, I'll do it myself. Ding Ming could only stand off to the side, his face red. After Lan Bing finished fastening the buckles, she glanced at him. Why is someone as powerful as you still shy? She had already sensed the terrifying energy that Ding Ming was channeling into her body. Just like Su Xia, the shock in her heart was unprecedented. Ding Ming's origin energy was not only pure, but it also contained many different transformations. It was a classic example of a green and healthy energy that had healing properties. This was the energy that many origin ability users yearned for, and had many benefits in battle. Most importantly, Ding Ming's origin energy was able to fuse with her ice, biochemical, and light elements. She had no idea that this was the divine light's energy. However, there was one thing that she understood. This energy was enough for her to reach the legendary battle monarch level. She was confident that she could refine it and use it for herself. In the past, this was something that she would never have dared to imagine. Which battle sage would be willing to use their precious origin energy on someone else? She turned her head and found that Ding Ming was still standing there like a dumbfounded goose. She couldn't help but take 2 steps forward and sigh. I heard from Sister Yin that only you can cure this poison. I should be the one thanking you this time. You even helped me improve by a large margin. I didn't expect you to have such a deep foundation. Ding Meng raised his head and said, "There's no need to thank me. You gave me so much money, so it's only right that I lend you a hand." Lan Bing was about the same height as Lu Qing. In any case, they were both taller than Ding Meng. The two of them were so close that Ding Meng had to raise his head if he wanted to speak. However, it was precisely because they were so close that Ding Meng could feel Lan Bing's orchid-like breathing. That was why Lan Bing was able to receive such a large amount of origin energy, so it was inevitable that her breathing would become heavier. However, Ding Meng didn't think that was the case. The fresh and natural fragrance of origin energy blew on his face, just like that absurd night. It would be strange if he could control himself. With a whoosh, Ding Meng suddenly pulled Lan Bing's waist into his embrace. The two of them looked into each other's eyes. Lan Bing's face was a little hot, but she didn't resist Ding Meng. Her right hand even hooked around Ding Meng's neck as she leaned into his embrace. At the very least, the embrace of a battle saint like Ding Meng gave her a sense of security. While the two of them were intoxicated, their rationality was obviously at a disadvantage. Although they were separated by a thick suit and shirt, Ding Meng felt that Lan Bing's waist was very soft. However, his right hand accidentally trembled and slid down her back a little. Ugh! Lan Bing let out a muffled groan. Her whole body trembled, and her breathing became more rapid. "All right, it's time for you to go." Lan Bing's rationality pulled her back from the brink of collapse. She slowly pushed Ding Meng away and sat back on the sofa. She picked up the calming tea and gulped it down a few mouthfuls. She seemed to have calmed down the fire in her heart. Then, she spread her hands and said, "Are you satisfied?" Ding Meng finally admitted defeat. "All right, I think I was a little impulsive." Lan Bing revealed a sly smile. "Did I make President Yu wear half a green hat?" Ding Meng was shocked. It turned out that this woman had a trick up her sleeve. "Don't be nervous. I was just joking with you." Lan Bing suddenly stood up and adjusted Ding Meng's collar. Her gaze was much gentler. At least, Ding Meng had never seen Lan Bing look at him like this before. "This is the reason why I'm afraid of you." Ding Meng decided to tell the truth. Lan Bing suddenly smiled. Her smile was a little charming. "What's there to be afraid of? If you really want to do anything to me with your current terrifying strength, do you think I can resist? Besides, I've been yours for many years. I swore long ago that I would never touch another man. However, you've already touched me today. If there's anything you want to say, we'll talk about it later. I'll still say the same thing. I'll wait for you to come back." The same words had a completely different meaning when heard at a different time. Ding Meng nodded. "I believe you completely." Lan Bing stared at him. "Go, it's time to go. Sister Wei will be back soon. It's not good for her to see you." Ding Meng expressed his innocence. "We didn't do anything. I'm just treating your wounds." Lan Bing resumed her cold smile. "You can only fool yourself with these words. You've underestimated a woman's intuition. Do you believe that if you dare to stay here for more than 20 minutes, she'll immediately notice that something is wrong with the atmosphere? The two of you have different expressions, and the relationship between you two. She might even discover more clues. Don't underestimate her. She's been with the Yu family for many years. She's a very loyal bodyguard." Ding Meng immediately raised his hands in surrender. "I believe you. I'll leave right now." Lan Bing smiled. "Don't think that I'm a fence-sitter who likes a battle saint who can treat my wounds. I'm just concerned about my investment and want to give you a taste of the sweetness. There won't be such a good thing next time." "I understand completely." Ding Meng turned around and left. To be more precise, he ran out of the CEO's office. 20 minutes after Ding Meng left, Yu Lingwei, dressed in a formal suit, arrived as scheduled. Secretary Yu always had a gentle smile on her face, giving off an amiable and friendly feeling. "CEO Lan, I've already informed them about the fleet that you've requested. A batch of supplies will be sent over from the Empire in a month's time. I've also made arrangements for the manpower. The name list has already been entered into your work database. Please take a look." Lan Bing had already returned to her office desk and was fiddling with a hologram in front of her. Okay, thank you for your hard work, Sister Wei. Yu Lingwei glanced around and suddenly smiled. CEO Lon, why do I feel that your complexion is very good today? Is there any good news? Lan Bing was surprised. Oh, is there? Yu Lingwei smiled. I can't say, but I feel that you're quite happy today. Lan Bing smiled. Maybe it's because the division is progressing smoothly. Yu Lingwei suddenly asked. There seems to be a trace of residual origin energy in here. Lan Bing had already expected this question. She said without batting an eyelid. Secretary Ding was here just now. Yu Lingwei said, Oh, Secretary Ding was here? Lan Bing smiled. Mr. May in the Technology Center custom-made a brand-new battle armor for Secretary Ding. He was so happy that he came here. He also gave me some pointers on how to break through and show me some tricks. Maybe it's because I'm about to break through, which is why you feel that I'm very happy. I see. No wonder I felt that the temperature in this room was a bit too high. Congratulations, CEO Lon. I hope you break through soon. Yu Lingwei suddenly understood. Ding Meng was a battle saint, so it was normal for him to give them some pointers. CEO Lon, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Okay. Lan Bing's expression didn't change. She maintained a smile, but when Yu Lingwei also left and the office door closed, the smile on her face suddenly disappeared and her heart sank. Damn Ding Meng. Aren't you always so calm? She didn't know why she was so impulsive today. Sure enough, Yu Lingwei still found some clues. Chapter 652. Planet Beidou was a huge planet that emitted a golden glow. Looking from space, it looked like a golden ball that was rotating in the void. The scale of this planet was far beyond that of ordinary terrestrial planets. There were even 5 satellites near it. Other than that, this star field was almost empty. It was obvious that it was the most suitable planet to be used as a transit star. There were only 4 people in the command cabin on the carrier's ship. Ding Meng, Meng Yin, Su Xia, and Long Feiyu. After more than 10 days of long-distance flight, Ding Meng finally saw this famous planet. Since there was no planet Liang in this star field, there was no day on planet Beidou. It was always night. However, planet Beidou was rich in mineral resources. Under the construction of a Hubol's family, this place could operate normally without sunlight. At this moment, Ding Meng and Meng Yin had changed into different appearances. Ding Meng was still using the identity of Wild Wolf. He had used this identity when he went to planet Cyprus, but now that he had the Blue Spirit spell, not only did Ding Meng look like Wild Wolf, but his body and temperament were also very similar. The reason why he changed into Wild Wolf was very simple. It was almost impossible for others to find out his information. Meng Yin did not use Lu Fei's appearance anymore. Lu Fei's identity had been used many times, and it was inevitable that there would be flaws. Therefore, Meng Yin changed into Four Eyes' appearance this time. Since Four Eyes was still on KV-303, no one would be able to find out in a short time. This time, Su Xia was the leader of this trip to planet Beidou, because this was the territory she had been in for many years. Ding Meng and Meng Yin were her subordinates. As for Long Feiyu, he did what he was supposed to do. His task was to collect the goods for Liang Iran. After that, he would wait for Ding Meng and the others to return. According to the instructions of the ground spaceport, the carrier ship must land according to the designated speed and route. When it was about to land, Ding Meng finally saw the Screes port of planet Beidou. The spaceport was shockingly huge. Ding Meng had never seen such a large spaceport. How should he describe it? In any case, there was no end in sight on the horizon. Countless helipads of different sizes were neatly arranged on the ground according to their respective scales. In midair, countless starships, spaceships, and flying vehicles were rising and falling while spurting out crystal flames, forming a straight line. It was almost like an innumerable meteor shower, but also like countless blooming fireworks. The flow of ships on such a scale was comparable to the flow of traffic in Blue Pole Star City. It was truly spectacular. The parking aprons in the spaceport were also graded. There were more than 30 different grades, such as where large starships should land and where small starships should land. These were all regulated by the rules. Ding-Meng noticed that the commands received by the control panel were C3, H2, D5, L7, X20. What does that mean? Ding-Meng felt as if he was reading a book from heaven. Long Feiyu controlled the light beam to fly, but there was a bitter smile on his face. It means that our starships can only land in the cheap-priced areas that are exclusively used by tourists and mercenaries. The management fee there is not high. Ding-Meng said, "Is there such a thing?" Su Xia said, "If it's a fleet of a large corporation of the Federal Empire, and there are large starships among them, they can land in the VIP ports because they know that such a fleet can afford the fees." The cheap-priced area was indeed a cheap-priced area. In a very remote corner of the spaceport, there was a helipad on which even the ground was not made of metal plates. There were more than 50 modified starships of different sizes in total. Only the four corners of the helipad were illuminated by lighthouses, making it extremely dim. After they got off the starship, 5 soldiers wearing mechanical armor and holding card readers immediately surrounded them. Long Feiyu came here often and was obviously very familiar with the leader of the soldiers. He immediately took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and said, "Captain Chong, have a smoke first." Captain Chong did not hesitate to take the cigarette and put it in his mouth. "I know it's you just by looking at this ship. Are you here to make a fortune again?" Long Feiyu smiled modestly and said, "Not at all. I'm just trying to make a living." Captain Chong glanced at Ding-Meng and the others. "Didn't your brothers come with you this time?" This girl is not bad. How much for a night?" Su Xia understood and knew that the soldiers were questioning whether they were unfamiliar faces. She took the initiative and said, "I'm an official citizen of Nanling City." "Oh." Captain Chong was surprised. "You're not a refugee? Then please show me your pass." Su Xia immediately extended her left hand, and Captain Chong immediately scanned her wrist with a card reader. His attitude immediately changed. "You're really a citizen of the city, but the records show that you've been away for 8 years, Su Xia said unhappily. "I went to the Steel Main Empire to earn money and came back." "Why? Can't I?" Yes, of course you can." Captain Chong did not bother with such an answer. His gaze fell on Ding-Meng and Meng Yan. "You two look unfamiliar." Su Xia said, "The people I brought back are all identification experts. They have passes." Ding-Meng and Meng Yan could only extend their wristbands for inspection. Captain Chong saw that it was indeed a pass for Nanling City. He could not help but be more polite. "Okay, you can enter the city now." Nanling City was the largest city on planet Beidou. It was more than 7,000 kilometers away from the spaceport. The spaceport service area rented flying cars, and the model was the oldest Greenbird. It looked like an electric car, and it was shabby. However, it cost 200 star coins for a one-way trip. It was ridiculously expensive. Most importantly, it was slow. It took 5 hours to fly there. For Ding-Meng and the others, it was better to walk. Since they did not have a pass, Long Feiyu could not travel with them. However, Long Feiyu was not going to Nanling City, so Ding-Meng and the others paid and set off. This flying car was indeed shabby. When they sat on it, the whole car kept shaking. It felt like it was going to fall apart. Ding-Meng could not help but say, "This shabby car actually costs 200 star coins." Su Xia smiled. "We are residents. This is already considered cheap. For smugglers like Old Long, they have to pay several times more for this." Ding-Meng said, "What about starships? Isn't it more expensive?" Su Xia said, "That's for sure. In principle, it's 1,000 star coins a day. However, if you don't leave after 7 days, the price will increase every day." Meng Yan asked curiously why. Su Xia said, "They have their reasons. They will say that you're taking up space, so they have to charge you more." Meng Yan frowned. "Isn't that the same as loan sharks?" Su Xia said, "Even more ruthless than loan sharks? Everything on planet Beidou costs money. Official residents have to pay air taxes every quarter." Meng Yan sighed in admiration. "So this place is even more expensive than those big cities in the Federation?" Su Xia said, "Of course. However, There's a reason why it is expensive. After all, we're going to Nanling City. Following Su Xia's introduction, Ding Ming slowly understood the situation here. Nanling City was not the only city on planet Beidou. There were other cities with corresponding functions. For example, the Traders Market was in Bo Yun City, the Mercenaries' mission submission location was in Double Seal Town, and the Black Market was in Soaring Dragon Underground City. In short, each city had its own characteristics and functions. However, among these dozens of cities, Nanling City was the most central city. This was because the Hubel's family was entrenched in Nanling City. Apart from that, there was another more important reason. Planet Beidou was filled with all kinds of people. Everyone was working in their own fields to earn money. Once they had money, they would naturally want to enjoy it. Therefore, Nanling City was specifically for people to spend money. This was the root of Planet Beidou's abnormal prosperity. Su Xia said, to be precise, Nanling City is a huge money-squandering den. It is specifically provided for those rich people to spend their money. Meng Yin clearly could not understand this. She said, what doesn't a big city in the Federation have? Why would they need to come all the way here to have fun? Su Xia said, Little Meng, you don't understand. The cities in the Federal Empire are all restricted by various laws. The reason why many rich people come to Nanling City is because they are not restricted by those laws. The things they play are things that they can't play in the Federation. Meng Yin boasted that she was someone with a lot of experience. However, after hearing Su Xia's explanation, she was also looking forward to it. What exactly was Nanling City like? Soon, the full appearance of Nanling City appeared in front of the three of them. Ding Ming's first reaction was that it was dazzling. This was a huge city filled with dazzling, futuristic styles. There were very few high-rise buildings in the city. They were all around 10 to 20 stories high. The shapes of these buildings were really strange. There was a building that was shaped like a trumpet flower that was upside down on the ground. There was a building that looked like a Kuan Peng starship that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws by the lake. There was a strange pavilion that was formed by many spheres stacked on top of each other. These buildings had one thing in common, and that was that they had plenty of light sources. All kinds of lights were shining at the same time. It was so dazzling that it was hard to take in all of them. It was like the flashing of neon lights. Meng Yin sighed and said, This is completely a city that never sleeps. Su Xia snapped her fingers and said, You guessed right. This is a city that never sleeps in the true sense of the word. There are all kinds of strange things in Nanling City. As long as you have money, you could do anything you want. Ding Ming said, You can even make a move? Su Xia said, There is only one rule, and that is to not go against the people of the Hubel's family. The three of them quickly got out of the car and walked into the colorful city. Nanling City was obviously planned and designed when it was first built. The buildings were scattered and the streets were well connected. However, there were few aircrafts passing by in the sky. The people on the road seemed to be no different from the residents of a normal city. Ding Ming sighed and said, This is very different from Baggerstar. Su Xia sneered and said, Baggerstar is similar to Boyun City and Shuangfeng Town. There are many people who commit murder and arson on the streets. However, those who can come to Nanling City are more or less rich and have status. Moreover, there are many citizens from the Federal Empire. Everyone is very low-key. They try not to cause trouble as much as possible. So what you see is just the surface. Meng Yin said, Then where should we go now? I'm afraid that there is no lack of hotels in this city, right? Su Xia snapped her fingers again and said, Let's go see an old friend of mine first. He has a wide range of information sources. Chapter 653. In the depths of the bustling street, Su Xia brought Ding Ming and Meng Yin to a pyramid-shaped building. The building itself was nothing special, but the crystal projector at the top was the dazzling advertisement. Mongo International Super Diamond Entertainment Center. Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. Coming to a nightclub was one thing, but this name was really arrogant. It was even more arrogant than Liang Iran's Ebao company. Do you think you're so awesome just because you're a super diamond? This was indeed a nightclub, but there was no daytime on planet Beidou. Almost all the buildings in Nanling City were nightclubs. Ding Meng and Meng Yin opened their eyes as soon as they entered. The first floor was a super big stage. This stage was at least tens of thousands of square meters. It was stacked up to 5 floors high, like building blocks. On each floor, there were men and women swaying wildly. Some were even fighting. The lights above were so bright that they almost blinded people. It was really lively and chaotic. Of course, there were many places like this in the big cities of the Federal Empire. As soon as Su Xia entered, she went straight to the innermost staircase. There were 2 waiters guarding the staircase. They stopped her directly. "Miss, you need to show your VIP information to go up to the 2nd floor." Su Xia said, "I'm looking for Mongo. Please pass on the message. My surname is Su, and my name is Su Xia." On planet Beidou, people who dared to introduce themselves were considered big shots. The waiters did not dare to be negligent. They quickly picked up the communicator hanging on their ears, asked a few simple questions, and politely extended their hands. "Miss Su, the boss is in the office on the 3rd floor. He invited you up." It turned out that Mongo was the boss of this entertainment center. Ding Meng thought that this place was mixed with good and bad people. It was also a good place to gather information. The 2nd floor of the entertainment center was very quiet. It was a closed tavern. There was no hall to speak of. It was full of private rooms with strong privacy. Ding Meng scanned the room with his telekinetic vision. He found that most of the rooms were naked young men and women. Some were doing something indescribable, but most were drinking in big mouthfuls with intoxicated faces. This was a bit illogical. Ding Meng simply used his telekinetic power to investigate. He could not help but be shocked. "They're not drinking real wine." Su Xia couldn't help but explain to him, "I told you before there are a lot of strange things here." Ding Meng still could not believe it. The wine they're drinking seems to be mixed with the devouring world's poison. Do these people want to die? It's a type of hallucinogenic toxin that can paralyze a person's nervous system. I heard from Aunt Shay that when ordinary people take this drug, their neurons will mutate. A month in their world is only a night in the outside world. If they take too much of this drug, their memory neurons will be destroyed and they will eventually become vegetative. They will fall into their own fantasies and never wake up. Ding Meng was dumbfounded. Drugs that were banned by the Federal Empire were openly traded here. The chaos on planet Beidou was indeed not an exaggeration. "Is this thing expensive?" Ding Meng asked. Su Xia said, "Many years ago, a private room could accommodate 12 people. The cost of a night would not be less than 40,000 star coins. I don't know about the current market. Brother Ding Meng, do you want to try it?" Meng Yin smiled. "Mr. Ting doesn't need it. He's completely immune to it." Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. "Of course. If I'm really hungry, I can eat it as a meal. Do you believe that I can bankrupt your friend's entertainment city with just one meal?" Su Xia could not help but smile. The CEO's office on the 3rd floor was a single room. The light source was very stable and bright, and the decorations were quite luxurious. In front of the central console screen was a middle-aged man in a very decent suit. He was a little fat, but when he saw Su Xia, he immediately greeted her. "Oh my God, little Xia, you've been gone for 7 or 8 years. Did you come back to visit me because you made a fortune?" Before she came, Su Xia had already explained that when she was framed by Bai Minggu and ended up in planet Beidou's head market, she had almost been sold as a slave. Fortunately, Brother Meng had taken her in, and the two of them had always been on good terms. However, Brother Meng was a businessman, and his entertainment business was quite good. He had also been entrenched in Nanling City for many years, so he was very well informed. After the two of them exchanged greetings, Su Xia began to introduce Ding Meng and Meng Yan. "Wild Wolf, Shi Yan. They're here to help me." Brother Meng was very enthusiastic. "Brother Wolf, Brother Shi, don't be shy. Little Xia is my little sister. Since you've come to Nanling City, you're one of us. Tell me what you want to do, and I'll arrange it for you." Su Xia said, "Brother Meng, Wild Wolf and Shi Yan are appraisal experts in mineral exploration. Brother Meng smiled, even more happily. You're not cultivating your origin energy? Now you know the benefits of doing business. Not bad. You're starting to trade in energy. Su Xia smiled. To tell you the truth, I came to Planet Beidou this time to do business in this area. I hope Brother Meng can give me some advice. Brother Meng finally stopped smiling. Little Xia, let me give you a word of advice. If it were 5 or 6 years ago, this business would still be profitable, but it hasn't been so for the past few years. Su Xia frowned. Why? Brother Meng said meaningfully, the Empire and the Frogman Kingdom have been at war for the past few years, and the situation in the fertile chalk star system has become more and more tense. Normal studios and exploration teams can no longer enter. Those who can enter are the professional teams of large corporations. Even the smuggling mercenaries outside have a hard time getting anything good. Not long ago, I had a client who was in this business. His company is about to close down. Ding Meng was secretly impressed when he heard this. This Brother Meng really did have some connections. News of the situation in the fertile chalk star system was so tense, and he, as the owner of an entertainment city, actually knew about it. Su Xia said, Brother Meng, I'm not in the business of trading in normal resources. Oh. Brother Meng was a little surprised. Little Xia, could it be that you're taking the high-end route? Su Xia smiled. I won't lie if I'm not an outsider. What I want to trade is those rare resources. Little Xia, you really know how to pick the right time. Brother Meng pointed at the ceiling. In the past 6 months, the higher-ups have closed down the 3 major ports in Scray's port. They've also restricted the areas where mercenaries and merchants are located. Some goods are not allowed to leave Planet Beidou. Su Xia did not understand. Why? Brother Meng smiled bitterly. How could a small fry like me know what the higher-ups are thinking? The higher-ups he was referring to were naturally the Hubol's family. However, Long Feiyu had encountered this situation before, so it was not a lie. Su Xia was silent. She said, Brother Meng, I'm just saying if I have a batch of goods that I want to take from here to the Federation, how can I avoid being restricted? Brother Meng immediately sensed the danger in her words. He could not help but be shocked. Sister, you're not joking with me, right? Do you know what the consequences of going against them are? Su Xia said, but my client at the Federation is very anxious. Also, this order is very large. I can't afford to lose it. Brother Meng sighed. You want to look for the person in charge of controlling the goods? Su Xia said yes. At most, I can go and ask that person to make an exception. Brother Meng shook his head. It's useless. You've been gone for 8 years. The higher-ups have changed a lot. Do you know who's in charge now? Su Xia curiously asked who. Brother Meng said, the person in charge of the settlement of the Double Seals Commission. Su Xia hesitated. Shengzhe? Brother Meng nodded. Su Xia could not help but sigh. I didn't expect this guy to be transferred back to Nanling City. This Shengzhe used to be a small leader in the Hubauer's family. This person's strength was average, but his business ability was very strong. The right to inspect the high-end goods entering and leaving Planet Beidou was in his hands. This proved that the higher-ups of the Hubauer's family valued his ability in this aspect. In fact, this Shengzhe's strong point was that he separated public from private interests. This person did not have many hobbies and rarely appeared in public places. It was more difficult to get close to him. The key was that the current situation was unclear. They could not possibly use Ding Meng's steely method to fight their way in, could they? Su Xia pondered and said, Brother Meng, where can I find Mr. Sheng? Brother Meng spread his hands and said, Little Xia, as your brother, I can't help you. My status is not at that level yet. Su Xia said, What I mean is, Brother Meng, do you have any way to know Mr. Sheng's usual movements? I'll just go and see Mr. Sheng. Whether it works or not, I'll have to thank you, Brother Meng. Is that so? Brother Meng pondered. Okay, wait a moment. I'll ask first. After saying that, he walked into the break room in the office. He was probably using his wristband to ask for information. In Ding Meng's telekinetic vision, Brother Meng was indeed using long-distance instant messaging to ask for information. He noticed that the mirror images generated in the break room were one after another. It seemed that Brother Meng was having a hard time getting information about Shangzhe. Ding Meng suddenly said, "Sister Xia, this friend of yours is very kind to you. He's already asked for help from many people." Su Xia also sighed. Brother Meng is a very good person. When he first came to Planet Beidou, he was sold to the slave market. I heard that he was going to be sent to the mining area to work as a coolie. Later, he was taken in by someone. It was because of this that he took me in back then. Without him, I would have been done for. Meng Yin sighed and said, "Fortunately, I met Mr. Ting back then." Su Xia glanced at her. "That's right. Of course, I also met Brother Ding Meng. That's how I got to where I am now." Su Xia's glance made Meng Yin feel a little uncomfortable. This was because both of them knew about Ding Meng's background. However, their standpoints were not quite the same. To put it bluntly, Meng Yin was on Lan Bing's side. However, Su Xia had been with Dai Yi every day in the refugee camp during this period. She was biased towards Dai Yi's side. It was just that women were too sensitive. There were many things that could not be said clearly. However, because each of them was on Ding Meng's side, there was a faint sense of hostility between the two sides. Meng Yan's point of view had not changed. "I don't know what's so good about Dai Yi. He's so much worse than our Xiao Bing. Miss Dai is still lacking. In terms of status and strength, she's not good enough for Mr. Ting." Su Xia's thoughts were completely opposite. Isn't he just the president of Shenghao's branch? So what if he's high and mighty? I'm a wild woman. Even wild lilies have their spring. Really, you've been talking about Xiao Bing and President Lan all this time. I'm annoyed just listening to you. Chapter 654. While the two women were suspicious of each other, Ding Meng noticed that Brother Meng had turned off the wristband. Sure enough, Brother Meng walked out with a smile. "Sister, there's news." Su Xia was overjoyed. "Brother Meng, thank you so much this time." Brother Meng had a mysterious look on his face as he said in a low voice, "For the past 12 days, he has been going to the Star Grand Club every other day. The time is about 20 to 22 at night. If there are no accidents, he will be there at this time tomorrow." Su Xia did not bat an eyelid. "Understood. Thank you, Brother Meng." After leaving the entertainment city, Su Xia took Ding Meng and Meng Yin to a residential street. It was similar to the two-story flat buildings in the underground city. There were small shops along the street. When they came to a shabby-looking shop, Su Xia used the wristband to open the door of the shop. An advertisement quickly appeared on the crystal projector. "Summer shop." Ding Meng looked at the decoration of the shop curiously. "Sister Xia, is this your shop?" Su Xia sighed. "It's been abandoned for 7 or 8 years. Now that I'm back, it's still the same. Let's just stay here tonight." It was a small arms shop. The projection in the hall showed that all kinds of firearms and energy weapons were sold here, including some cold weapons. There were even some contraband items of the Federation. They were also displayed openly. Meng Yin was also very curious. "You used to smuggle arms?" Su Xia also learned from Ding Meng and coughed. "Ahem, little Meng, we're all just trying to make a living. Isn't your dragon-slaying corps also involved in the arms trade?" "Okay." Meng Yin spread her hands and said, "I didn't participate in it anyway." "Mr. Ting, are we still going to act according to the old rules tomorrow?" Ding Meng nodded. "Sister Yin, I'll have to trouble you again this time." As usual, they had to act separately. However, considering that the target was going to Xinghao Clubhouse, Ding Meng still had to go with Su Xia. After returning home, Su Xia went upstairs to dress up. She changed out of her galactic clothes and put on a long black dress. Her hair was tied up high, and she put on a pair of large earrings. She also put on some light makeup, got a small and exquisite handbag, and put on a pair of high heels. She looked like a nouveau riche. According to Su Xia's explanation, there were many people who became rich overnight on Planet Beidou. Many people liked to show off when they were rich, especially in the Star Grand Clubhouse, because Star Grand Clubhouse was a rather famous casino in the eastern part of Nanling City. In other words, the information that Brother Meng heard was very valuable. Since Shang Zhe went to a fixed place at a fixed time, It proved that this person was not without preferences. Most men could not escape the law of wine, women, avarice, and temper in their entire life. To put it simply, they had to do something like eating, drinking, whoring, and gambling. This Sheng just said that he had no preferences, but he actually liked gambling. However, this person only gambled for 2 hours a day, which showed that he had quite a lot of self-control. As the old saying went, dress majestically, gamble, and whoring comes to nothing. Therefore, in Ding Meng's opinion, eating was the most practical thing. However, he found another problem. It was not unreasonable for Lan Bing to give him a huge sum of 13 billion. Could it be that she knew about the situation in Nanling City and knew that he was going to gamble? The Star Grand Clubhouse was built at the crossroads of a busy street in the eastern part of Nanling City. This was a very golden geographical location. The entire clubhouse had a total of 5 floors and was as dazzling as a royal palace. After entering the first floor, it felt like he had walked into a colorful fantasy world. Not only was it lively, but there were also many types of gambling. The most common were roulette, cards, dice, coin machines, bubble machines, and electronic game consoles. It was a dazzling array of things, and everything was available. Men and women dressed in all kinds of expensive clothes gathered in groups of 3 to 5. Some were frowning, some were in high spirits, and it seemed like they were having a blast playing. When Ding Meng was at the entrance, he already knew the rules. As long as you had money, you could enter the Star Grand Clubhouse. The entrance fee was 998 star coins, which was comparable to the parking fee of a starship for a day. After entering, you could also go to the front desk to exchange for chips. Why did they use such a retro method? Because star coins were a virtual currency, but chips were physical objects. Not only did the colorful chips feel good to hold, but if you won money, you would also feel a sense of accomplishment by placing them in a pile in front of you. The first floor was the gathering place for ordinary individuals. The bets here were usually in the tens of thousands of star coins, and above the second floor was the VIP area. There were also different levels of VIPs, but the conditions to become an ordinary VIP member were harsh enough. That was, you had to exchange chips of 200,000 star coins in one go at the casino. To put it bluntly, you had to lose 200,000 star coins in the casino before you could be invited. Su Xia definitely did not have money, so Ding Meng walked up to the front desk casually. "May I ask what service you require, sir?" The staff at the front desk was very polite. Ding Meng turned on his wristband and said, "Give me chips of 1 million star coins first." 1 million star coins was really nothing compared to the top gamblers in the Xinghao clubhouse, but for the gambling on the first floor, it was quite a large sum of money. The key was that Ding Meng and Su Xia were too unfamiliar, and the staff was also a little surprised. 1 million star coins in one go, so they could see the relationship between the two in front of them, a rich woman with a tower-like follower coming out to play. The staff was still very polite. According to the rules, you can go to the VIP area on the second floor for entertainment. I wish you a happy time. The layout of the second floor was obviously much more impressive. First of all, there were no machine gambling machines on the first floor. Instead, there were professional gambling tables, mainly chess and cards. To put it bluntly, the gamblers on this floor were not here to try their luck, but to mix in some skills. Su Xia turned her head and asked, "What game are we playing?" Ding Meng waved his hand casually. "Anything." Su Xia couldn't help but laugh. Ding Meng's telekinesis was like a cheat in the casino, and no one could see through it. Then, Su Xia walked toward the biggest table in the center. Actually, it couldn't be called a table, but an oval box. This was the most popular game of dice. In the center of the box was a fixed betting pattern, surrounded by noisy gamblers. In addition to the gamblers, there were 4 staff members at the table: the head of the box, the dealer, the staff member, and the surveillance officer. The head of the box was the host. The dealer was in charge of settling the claims. The staff member was in charge of the dice, and the surveillance officer was the only Origin ability user in the casino who could use Origin energy. His purpose was to sense the gamblers. If the gamblers used Origin energy, they would be seen as cheating, and the consequences would be quite serious. The game was very simple. The gamblers took turns to throw 3 dice on the table, and if the bet hit, they would win money. This game seemed simple, but it wasn't easy to actually win money. The betting pattern was very clear at a glance. There were all kinds of options, including big and small odd pairs, point pairs, leper combinations, and so on. To put it simply, the odds of the bets were different. At this moment, there were 20 to 30 people around the table, and it was a mess. Susia looked at the rules and saw that each bet couldn't be less than 10,000 points. Ding Meng was holding a small crystal plate in his hand. There were 100 chips stacked on top of it, and each chip was exactly 10,000 points. However, looking at the bets on the table, no one had less than 10 chips. Susia said, "Should we play a little?" Ding Meng laughed. "If you bet on big or small, then you probably won't win money in an entire night." The odds for big or small were 1-to-1. Only those who bet on the unorthodox options had a chance of winning. The highest odds among all the options was 1 to 150, which meant that they had to bet on 3 dice with the same number, such as 3 sixes and 3 ones. Then let's try our luck first. Susia took out a chip and put on the big die pattern. Betting on big was 10 to 18 points. If she won, she would win 10,000 points. However, as soon as she put the chip down, there were a lot of strange eyes looking at her from all around. There wasn't a single person betting on big or small. Many people were betting on points and pairs because the odds were relatively high. Moreover, most people were stacking more than 10 chips on top of each other. Susia's single chip lying there was a bit eye-catching. "Yo, are you new here? Why are you so careful?" A sarcastic voice sounded from the side. Susia turned her head and saw a middle-aged woman next to her. She was a little plump, but the disdain between her eyebrows was quite obvious. This rich lady obviously thought that Susia was a newbie who had just entered the casino. Susia didn't explain. "Try my luck?" "Why? What do you think?" The rich lady snorted. She reached out and pressed down a stack of chips. She bet 15 points. "Learn a little, country bumpkin. Don't think that you can join in the fun just because you have some money." At this time, the boxman spoke. "Is there anyone else betting? If there's no one, we can start. 3, 2, 1, throw." The dice were thrown by a young gambler across the table. This basically eliminated the possibility of the banker cheating. Everyone took turns to throw the dice, so it was relatively fair. The 3 dice rolled on the table a few times. The dice settled, and the numbers came out. 2, 5, 6. The total was exactly 13 points. The person holding the dice was already counting the chips. Susia easily won 10,000 points. She couldn't help but laugh. Women from the countryside usually have good luck. She didn't know if she was laughing at herself or mocking the rich lady. In any case, the rich lady's 15 points bet was all gone. The rich lady was obviously not convinced. It's not a big deal to bet on small or small. If you have the temperament, then play big. Susia didn't waste time talking nonsense with her. She directly put the 2 chips she received on the couplet pattern. This meant that she was betting on double dice. If she got it right, the odds would be 1, 2. The rich lady laughed disdainfully. "Little girl, it seems that you still don't have the courage." Susia smiled and didn't argue. She knew that with Ding Meng here, she couldn't bet wrong. This time, the person who threw the dice was a tall and burly man. He used a little too much force, as if he had slapped the dice down with his palm. The 3 dice flew all over the table, and the gamblers around them started to shout and whisper, "Hey, 12 points, 12 points, 12 points. 999, couplet, come on, F asterisk king couplet." When the dice stopped, the boxman immediately announced the results. 2, 2, 6, a total of 10 points. Pair, double 2, bet big. The crowd around them sighed. Susia was the only one who had won this round. Chapter 655. Following the boxman's command, a new round of dice was thrown. This time, the spirited young man seemed to be a veteran. He didn't throw all the dice at once, but rather one by one. The first 2 dice were 3, 4. The probability of winning with this number was very high. Betting big, small, or straight could all be won. The surrounding people were shouting nonstop. 3, 3, 3. The rich madam was so excited that her face was red. She had bet on a pair. If she won this round, she would get back the hundreds of thousands she had lost. Su Xia smiled without saying anything. Her 4 chips were on a straight, so the odds were 1 to 4. The spirited young man put his hands together and held the dice in the middle. He seemed to be praying to the heavens. He blew at the dice and then fiercely pushed it out. The dice rolled halfway across the table before coming to a stop. Everyone stared at it intently. The result was 5 points. The boxman immediately said, 345, 12 points, straight, bet big. Hee hee. Su Xiao laughed out loud. It seems like I really don't have much courage. I bet too little. The staff gave her 20 chips. The rich madam wasn't too happy. This time, she pressed a stack of chips on the pair pattern. When she turned around to look, she couldn't help but be surprised. Little girl, you seem to be very confident in yourself. This time, Su Xia directly bet 20 chips on the 345 straight. This meant that if she bet on the same straight twice, the numbers had to be the same. The odds were 1 to 15. The probability of winning was very low, so the odds were quite high. The boxman started again. 3, 2, 1. Begin. This time, the person throwing the dice was a beautiful, mature woman. She copied the spirited young man and threw the dice one by one. The rich lady was shocked when she saw the first number. It was really only 4 points. Throw, throw, throw. The surrounding people shouted one after another. The second dice came out very quickly. It was a very eye-catching 5. At this moment, many sharp-eyed people had already noticed the stack of chips on the Lian Shun pattern on the table. Su Xia was the only one. As the woman threw the dice for the 3rd time, the die spun a few times and stopped. The rich lady was dumbfounded. It was a 3. 345, 12 o'clock, straight bet on big. The boxman announced the results loudly. When he announced the results, he couldn't help but turn his head to look at Su Xia. Congratulations to this beautiful lady for winning the Lian Shun Grand Prize tonight. This time, the staff member pushed a large pile of chips in front of Su Xia. There were a total of 320 chips, which amounted to 2 million star coins. In the minds of many people, they were betting on a small win. Tonight was already worth it. 2 million star coins. They could go to a different place and start with a young model. However, Su Xia didn't even move. She looked at the gambling table with a smile. Beautiful lady, are you interested in getting to know me? This is my name card. The rich madam's attitude towards Su Xia had taken a 180-degree turn. Su Xia shrugged. Sorry, I'm not free. She really wasn't free. At this moment, Shang Zhe and the others had already walked up to the 2nd floor. The staff was already whispering something into his ear. Before coming, Su Xia had already asked Brother Ming about it. The Hubel's family also had shares in the Xinghao Club. The casino wouldn't let her leave safely after winning so much money. As expected, the beautiful staff member at the front desk had already walked up. Hello, beautiful lady. Congratulations on winning a big prize in our Xinghao Club. Now, there's a gentleman who wants to invite you to the 3rd floor for a higher level of gambling. What do you think? Su Xia pretended to be surprised. May I ask who this gentleman is? This is Mr. Sheng. He's a diamond VIP member of our club. The young beauty immediately pointed into the distance. She saw Sheng Zhe talking to the boxman and the others on the 2nd floor's escalator. Xinghao's VIP members were divided into normal, intermediate, advanced, gold, diamond, and supreme. Reaching the diamond level meant that the member could at least gamble in the hundreds of millions. That meant that they were capable enough. Okay, please lead the way. Su Xian knew that she couldn't refuse. She was very clear about the casino's methods. If she really won 2 billion and wanted to run away, there would be no way. She would be thanking the gods for letting her walk away with 2 million. The 3rd floor didn't have the style of a casino at all. It was completely different from the 1st and 2nd floors. It was a round hall similar to a theater. The decoration was slightly dark, and there were private rooms with crystal glass installed around it. It was convenient to watch the stage built in the center. The private rooms were decorated very luxuriously. There was a dazzling array of wine and snacks on a coffee table. If it weren't for the special occasion, Ding Ming would have swept all of them away. In addition, the private rooms were equipped with 2 waiters, a man and a woman. The man was extremely handsome in a suit, while the woman was extremely beautiful in a cheongsam. Her legs were faintly discernible. Su Xia was obviously very familiar with this. It didn't matter if the guest was male or female. If they wanted to enjoy handsome men and beautiful women, they could get them anytime and anywhere. Su Xia waved her hand. We don't need any service. Go and invite Mr. Sheng over. Miss Su, you're indeed an expert. As he spoke, he turned around to look at one of the bodyguards. The bodyguard understood and quickly left. Not long after, Ding Ming noticed that the steel plate on the center stage had cracked open. There was actually an elevator underneath. On the elevator stood a man and a woman. They were wearing snow-white training clothes. Their palms and ankles were wrapped in gauze. The man's physique was average, but the woman looked more robust. Her entire body was filled with muscles. Naturally, this live boxing match was a duel. In the Federal Empire, this kind of match could be found everywhere. However, the live boxing matches on planet Beidou were very different. First of all, there was an underground fighting arena on planet Beidou. That place wasn't a place to compare notes. It was a real life and death battle. The winner had to be completely defeated to determine the winner. Secondly, the participants had to be below the warrior level. In other words, they were the purest low-level origin ability users. Why was there such an arrangement? It was because it was too difficult to predict the winner. If it was a battle between a battle master and a battle reverend, everyone would be able to easily see the difference. The higher the level of the battle, the easier it would be to crush the opponent. Usually, the outcome of the battle would be decided within 1 or 2 moves. Even if it was a battle between 2 battle saints, if there was a slight difference, the origin ability index would be in the hundreds of millions. If one was not careful, one would be finished. A typical example would be Ding Ming's battle on planet V9. In just a few moves, he had defeated Zheng Lang and the others. As for ordinary origin ability users, the gap between them was very small. According to the Federation's standard, a beginner origin ability user would have an index of 500 points, an intermediate origin ability user would have an index of 1,200 points, and an advanced origin ability user would have an index of 3,000 points. Such a gap wasn't enough to be fatal. Not to mention, there were many factors that could affect the outcome of a battle. Therefore, the underground fighting arena on planet Beidou attracted many rich and powerful people in the Federal Empire to gamble. It was a real gamble. Speaking of which, it was quite strange. These upper-class people preferred this kind of cruel and bloody life and death battles. They didn't hesitate to bet a lot on the outcome. Actually, this was quite understandable. These rich people liked novelty and excitement. Many of them weren't origin ability users, so they could only understand this kind of level of battle. On the other hand, they didn't care about the Star Wars League that was popular all over the world. This was because the Star Wars League was held in the virtual world of the International Space Network. Are all the guests choosing here? Su Xia asked. Xiao Miao smiled and shook her head. That's not the case. Every region has 20 candidates. For the sake of fairness, these 20 people have only been here for less than 10 days. We're in Region 3, so naturally, we'll be in Region 3. Ding Ming said. How many guests are there in this competition? Xiao Miao said. Including us, there are a total of 9 guests. 9 guests meant that there would be 9 contestants in the competition, but in the end, only one could win. The guests could place their bets at random for each round of the competition. Su Xia glanced around again and pointed at a cage. Let's choose him. She had a good eye. The person she chose was dressed in rags and wasn't very tall. He was curled up in the cage and emitted a foul stench. He looked to be around 30 years old, but in Ding Meng's field of vision, this person's wrists, elbows, and ankles were all covered in thick calluses. Clearly, he had been doing manual labor for many years. His telekinesis field of vision scanned very clearly. This person was a thermodynamic type origin ability user. There were 4 origin points constructed in his heart, and his index was around 2,800 points. He was a high-level origin ability user. Through the pattern constructed from the origin points, he should be cultivating the 4-star, 5-colored eternal flame technique. Xiao Miao opened the iron bars. Number 18, your sponsor is here. Number 18 appeared very calm. He slowly got up and walked out. Ding Meng suddenly asked, manual labor? Number 18's originally calm eyes flashed with a trace of brilliance, but his expression was still calm. Yes, sure enough, he was a laborer from the refugee camp. He was an origin ability user who had awakened in the underground mine. Ding Meng continued, how many years have you been working? Number 18 said, 12 years. Xiao Miao explained, Number 18's codename is Wild King. He came from the Noka star system. He's a thermodynamic type and specializes in close combat boxing. He signed up for our arena because he wants to move to the Empire's border. Her explanation was very simple, but Ding Meng could imagine what Number 18 had encountered. Number 18 had likely awakened his origin ability at the prime of his life and obtained a 4-star cultivation technique through some kind of opportunity. However, he had worked in the mine for 12 years, which meant that he had missed the golden beginning. Thus, if he wasn't a warrior at the age of 30, his future achievements would be very limited. However, among the ranks of origin ability users, Number 18 had a very good foundation. As for wanting to move to the Empire's border, he was definitely short on money. When Ding Meng was in the God War star system, he had heard about the arena there. It was nothing more than a cruel fight to obtain the qualifications to enter the star ring. To put it bluntly, it was exchanging one's life for money. Guests brought their own contestants, and as long as the contestants' index did not exceed 3,000 points, the arena would recognize them. However, when Suxia heard that it was the Apocalypse group, her face darkened. She'd better not let me know that she's on Gu Tianming's side. Otherwise, I'll skin her alive. At this moment, the subtitles on the big screen were refreshed. Number 9, Gang Lu, vs. Number 7, Chao Bai, 1. 8. 1. Xiao Miao had already started to explain that VIP number 9 was going to challenge VIP number 7. Contestant number 9's code name was Gang Lu, while contestant number 7's nickname was Chao Bai. The arena's odds were 1. 8. 1, which meant that Yuan Zhongqing's side thought that Chao Bai was stronger than Gang Lu. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. VIP number 7 was Angel, but the name of the contestant under her wasn't very elegant. After the odds were out, they didn't ask the VIPs to place their bets. This was because the ground below suddenly lowered. It turned out that this arena was also a huge elevator. After it lowered, it wasn't an empty ground anymore. Instead, it was a swamp. There were trees, vines, and mud everywhere. This was the privilege of the contestants. They could choose the map. This arena was at least 70 to 80,000 square meters. It was truly a dangerous jungle. At the same time, the doors of number 9 and number 7 opened at the same time. 2 contestants appeared at the same time. The one called Gang Lu was also dressed in ragged clothes. He had a ferocious appearance and was at least 9 meters tall. There was a sharp cookery knife at his waist. At a glance, one could tell that he had spent a lot of time in the wilderness. This kind of ability users' strength couldn't be compared to those war reverends, but they definitely had a lot of combat experience. When Gang Lu walked out of the door, he wasn't in a hurry to enter the battle. Behind the door, a soldier threw in a few sacks. Gang Lu pounced on them like a hungry wolf and tore the sacks open in a few seconds. Inside the sacks were boxes of metal-packaged beast meat. It was as if the Ganoderma had not eaten for years. It picked up the can and stuffed it into its mouth. It was no different from a wild beast. This was the first time Su Xia had heard the sound of metal being chewed by teeth. The sound made her hair stand on end. However, the guests in the other private rooms watched with great interest as Genji ate the meat. They had come here to enjoy this strange scene. Xiao Miao also explained, "Now is the observation time. Miss Su, you can consider placing your bets after you observe. Normally, the first bet is the most important. It will affect the odds of the later rounds. The minimum bet for a single round is 1 billion star coins. If you have any special requests, you can tell me. I will ask Mr. Yuan for additional bets." Ding Ming nodded. He was an expert, so he naturally knew the meaning behind this.